The moonlight cast a silver glow across the frozen river, transforming the ice into a path of broken mirrors. Abigail Fletcher stood at the edge, her breath forming clouds that drifted away like departing spirits. Her thin cotton dress offered little protection against the Montana winter, but the cold had long ceased to matter. What was physical discomfort to a soul already numb? She closed her eyes, clasped her raw, chapped hands together, and whispered a prayer into the bitter night. "Dear Lord, forgive me for what I'm about to do. I know it's a sin, but I just can't bear it anymore." The tears that slid down her cheeks froze before they could fall. 16 years of life. And what did she have to show for it? A body marked with bruises. A stomach that had forgotten what it meant to be full. A heart that had learned to expect nothing but disappointment. Abigail took one step forward, then another. The ice creaked beneath her bare feet. "I'll see you soon, Mother," she whispered. As she prepared to take the final step, something fluttered from the pocket of her tattered dress. A folded piece of paper worn thin from countless readings. Abigail paused, her hand instinctively reaching for it. The letter had fallen onto the ice, illuminated by moonlight, as if demanding one last audience. With trembling fingers, she picked it up and unfolded it. Her mother's handwriting, once so strong and certain, had been weak and unsteady when she wrote these words just days before consumption claimed her life, 3 years ago. "My dearest Abigail, by the time you read this, I will be gone. The fever takes more of me each day. But even as my body fails, my love for you remains steadfast. You are my greatest creation, my most precious gift to this world. Dark days may come. I fear what your father's choices might bring upon our household. But remember, you are stronger than any storm. You have my knowledge, my heart, and my resilience. Promise me you will live, truly live, not merely exist. Find the light when darkness surrounds you. It is always there, even when we cannot see it. Your spirit is a flame that cannot be extinguished by cruelty or neglect. Let it burn bright enough to guide others. With eternal love." Mother Abigail clutched the letter to her chest, a sob breaking free from deep within. Her mother had known, somehow she had known what was coming. Eleanor's arrival, the slow poisoning of her father's mind and body, the transformation of their home from haven to prison. She looked up at the vast Montana sky stars scattered like seeds across the darkness. Was her mother watching? Would she witness her daughter surrender? "Not today," Abigail whispered, taking a step back from the edge. "Not today." The walk back to the Mason family farm was long and punishing. Each step felt like walking on shards of glass, her bare feet numb from cold. But something had changed inside her. The flame her mother spoke of, small and flickering, but alive. Pine Hollow lay sleeping under a blanket of snow, the scattered homesteads dark, except for occasional lantern light. Abigail kept to the shadows, following the fence line that led to the property that had once been her family's pride. The Fletcher farm had been prosperous once before her mother died, before Eleanor Mason arrived with her honeyed words and poison heart. As she approached the farmhouse, Abigail slowed her pace. No candles burned in the windows. Everyone would be asleep. Eleanor in the master bedroom with Abigail's father, Jonathan Fletcher, whose mind had been steadily failing for months. Abigail would slip into the storage shed, where she now slept huddled beneath thin blankets on a bed of straw, and no one would know of her midnight contemplation. But as she rounded the corner, a figure stood waiting by the shed door. Eleanor wrapped in a thick woolen shawl, her face a mask of cold fury. "Where have you been, girl?" she demanded, voice barely above a whisper, but sharp as a blade. Abigail dropped her gaze. "I needed air, ma'am." "Air?" Eleanor's laugh was brittle. "At midnight in winter." She stepped closer, grabbing Abigail's chin and forcing her face up. "What's this? Tears? Have you been running to the neighbors with tales again?" "No, ma'am." "Liar." The slap came without warning, snapping Abigail's head to the side. "I've tolerated your insolence for your father's sake, but my patience wears thin." Abigail said nothing. Speaking only made things worse. "Tomorrow, the Ladies' Aid Society will be visiting. You will serve them tea without a single mistake. You will be invisible unless needed. You will not embarrass me." Eleanor's fingers dug into Abigail's arm. "Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good." Eleanor released her with a small shove. "And don't forget, one word about our private affairs to anyone, and your father will suffer for it. His health is fragile." The threat hung in the air like frost. Abigail nodded, watching as Eleanor glided back to the house, elegant even in her cruelty. Once alone, Abigail slipped into the shed, her sanctuary and prison. A single threadbare blanket lay on the straw mattress. The walls had gaps where wind whistled through, but it was safer here than in the house, away from Eleanor's unpredictable rage and roaming hands in the night. She tucked her mother's letter into a small hollow beneath a floorboard alongside a worn journal where she documented each day's events in careful script. If anything happened to her, at least, there would be a record. Evidence. Truth. Sleep came in restless fits, her dreams haunted by ice breaking and dark water rising. Morning arrived with heavy snowfall and the clatter of activity. Abigail was awake before dawn, stoking fires, preparing breakfast, and scrubbing floors until her hands were raw. Eleanor supervised every task, with critical eyes, finding fault in the smallest details. "The silver isn't polished properly." "There's dust on the mantelpiece." "Are you trying to embarrass me with these lumpy scones?" By mid-morning, Abigail's body ached, but the house gleamed. The parlor had been transformed with Eleanor's finest linens and china. Fresh pine boughs decorated the mantel, filling the room with their sharp, clean scent, masking the underlying smell of sickness that had permeated the house since Jonathan's health began to decline. The Ladies' Aid Society began arriving at noon. 6 women from Pine Hollow's most prominent families, dressed in their Sunday best, despite the snow, each carrying a basket of charity items they would sort and distribute to the less fortunate families in the area. The irony wasn't lost on Abigail. These women would sip tea in the same house where she was starving. Mrs. Holcomb arrived first, followed by the widow Barrett and Mrs. Peterson. Then came Mrs. Richmond with her daughter Lillian, and finally Mrs. Green, the doctor's wife, whose kind eyes always made Abigail nervous. She noticed too much. "Eleanor, darling, the house looks magnificent," Mrs. Holcomb gushed, handing her cloak to Abigail without a glance. "One would never know you'd been here less than 3 years." Eleanor beamed. A woman's touch was sorely needed. Poor Jonathan had let things slip after Margaret passed. Abigail kept her eyes down as she hung the cloaks and led the ladies to the parlor. Her mother's name in Eleanor's mouth felt like desecration. "And how is dear Jonathan?" asked Mrs. Green, settling onto the settee. Her gaze flicked briefly to Abigail, then back to Eleanor. "Resting, I'm afraid. His condition continues to challenge us." Eleanor's voice dripped with practiced concern. "But I ensure he wants for nothing. Abigail, the tea." Abigail moved carefully, pouring the steaming liquid into delicate cups, without spilling a drop. Years of practice had taught her how to be invisible, to move like a ghost, through rooms where she wasn't welcome. The conversation flowed around her. Talk of church fundraisers, the harsh winter marriages, and births and deaths. Abigail served and cleared refilled cups and offered scones, all while keeping her face blank and her movements silent. And of course, the Thornton girl has disgraced herself completely, Mrs. Peterson was saying, voice lowered conspiratorially. Found in the hayloft with the blacksmith's apprentice. No, gasped Mrs. Holcomb, clearly delighted by the scandal. Indeed, her father sent her to relatives in Denver, but the damage is done. Abigail placed a fresh pot of tea on the table, careful not to react. Emma Thornton had been kind to her once, sharing an apple when Abigail hadn't eaten in 2 days. Now she was gone, another girl's life controlled by the whims of others. Speaking of young ladies, Mrs. Green said suddenly, Abigail, dear, you've grown so tall since I last saw you properly. How old are you now? The room fell silent. Abigail froze teapot in hand. Direct questions were dangerous. She's 16, though she acts like a child half the time, Eleanor answered, for her tone light but warning evident. Abigail, Mrs. Richmond's cup is empty. Abigail moved to serve Mrs. Richmond, but as she leaned forward, Lillian Richmond shifted suddenly, bumping Abigail's elbow. Hot tea splashed across Mrs. Richmond's silk dress, drawing a shriek from the woman. You clumsy, stupid girl! Mrs. Richmond jumped to her feet, dabbing frantically at the spreading stain. I'm so sorry, Abigail gasped, reaching for a napkin, but Eleanor was faster, swooping in with soothing words and a damp cloth. My deepest apologies, Meredith. Abigail, go fetch towels immediately. Eleanor's voice was calm, her social mask firmly in place, but her eyes promised retribution. Abigail hurried from the room, heart pounding. When she returned with towels Eleanor had already smoothed, the situation attributing the accident to the girl's unfortunate nervousness around company. Margaret's death affected her deeply, poor child, Eleanor was saying, voice soft, with false sympathy. And she's always been different, dreamy, and distracted. The women clucked their tongues in pity, crisis averted. But Mrs. Green's eyes followed Abigail, seeing the tremor in her hands, the hollowness of her cheeks. Perhaps she could assist me at the spring charity clinic, Mrs. Green suggested. Samuel says we need extra hands and it would be good experience for a girl her age. Eleanor's smile tightened. How thoughtful, but Abigail is needed here, with Jonathan's condition and the household duties. Of course, Mrs. Green conceded, but her gaze lingered on Abigail a moment longer. The rest of the gathering passed without incident, though Abigail felt Eleanor's anger simmering beneath her perfect hostess veneer. When the last guest departed and the door closed behind Mrs. Green's concerned glance, the mask fell away. In my room, now, Eleanor's voice was ice. Abigail followed her stepmother upstairs, legs leaden with dread. Eleanor's room had once belonged to her parents. Now her father slept in a small chamber off the kitchen where Eleanor could better tend to his needs. Eleanor closed the door. You embarrassed me deliberately. No, ma'am. It was an accident. Lillian bumped. Silence. Eleanor's hand struck again, harder this time. Always excuses. Always some explanation that paints you as the victim. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't clean tea from silk. Eleanor paced the room, her skirts swishing angrily. Mrs. Green is becoming too interested in you. What have you told her? Nothing, I swear. Eleanor studied her, searching for lies. Your father's condition worsens. The doctor says it's a mystery ailment. Isn't that strange? Abigail's throat tightened. Yes, ma'am. If you value what little comfort he has left, you'll remember your place. Eleanor moved to the window, looking out at the falling snow. Get out. I can't bear the sight of you. And don't expect dinner tonight." Abigail retreated, closing the door quietly behind her. She paused at her father's room, pushing the door open gently. Jonathan Fletcher lay still in the narrow bed, his once robust frame wasted to skin and bone. His eyes, when they opened, were cloudy and confused. "Margaret," he whispered, reaching a trembling hand toward her. Abigail took his hand, fighting back tears. "No, Father, it's Abigail." "Abigail." He frowned, struggling to place her. "My daughter." "Yes, Father." He seemed to drift his gaze, wandering to the ceiling. "I don't feel well, child. Something's wrong with me. I can't remember things clearly." "I know." She squeezed his hand. "Rest now. Eleanor says I need more medicine. She gives it to me every night. It tastes bitter." His eyes found hers, suddenly a flash of clarity amid the confusion. "I don't think it's helping Abby." A chill ran through her that had nothing to do with the drafty room. "What color is it, Father? The medicine dark, like strong tea." He coughed, the sound rattling in his chest. "Where's your mother, child? I need to speak with her." "She's gone, Father. Remember, 3 years now." His face crumpled. Yes, I recall now. My Margaret. I miss her so." "So do I." Footsteps in the hall sent Abigail to her feet. "I must go. I'll try to visit again tomorrow." And she slipped out just as Eleanor rounded the corner, arms full of freshly laundered linens. Her stepmother's eyes narrowed. "What were you doing in there? Checking if Father needed anything?" "That's my concern, not yours." Eleanor pushed past her into the room. "Go finish your chores." The rest of the day passed in a blur of work and hunger. By evening, the temperature had plummeted, and a fierce wind drove the snow horizontally across the fields. Abigail huddled in the shed, wrapping her blanket tightly around her shoulders as she wrote in her journal by the light of a stolen candle stub. January 15th, 1882. Father mentioned the medicine again today. Dark, liquid, bitter taste. His mind grows worse each week. I fear Eleanor is poisoning him slowly, but I have no proof, and no one would believe me over her. Mrs. Green seemed concerned. Perhaps she suspects something, but what can she do? What can anyone do? The ladies' aid meeting went poorly. I spilled tea on Mrs. Richmond's dress. It truly was an accident, though Eleanor will never believe that. No dinner tonight as punishment. I nearly ended everything last night. Went to the river intending to slip beneath the ice. Mother's letter stopped me. She told me to live to find light in darkness. But where is that light, Mother? I cannot see it. I cannot feel it. There is only cold and hunger and fear. A particularly strong gust rattled the shed door, blowing it open and extinguishing her candle. Snow swirled in, covering the dirt floor with white. Abigail rushed to close the door, but Eleanor stood in the opening, her face terrible in the moonlight. "Writing again," she hissed, snatching the journal from Abigail's hands. "What lies are you recording now?" "Please." Abigail reached for the book. "Those are private thoughts." "Nothing is private in my house." Eleanor flipped through the pages, her expression darkening. "Poison. You accuse me of poisoning your father." She ripped several pages out, crumpling them in her fist. "You ungrateful wretch." "It's just a diary," Abigail pleaded. "Just thoughts. Dangerous thoughts." Eleanor grabbed her arm, dragging her from the shed into the howling storm. "I've tolerated your presence for your father's sake, but no more. You're a burden and a threat." Abigail struggled against her grip. "Where are you taking me?" "Away." Eleanor pushed her toward the gate. "Go. Run to the neighbors with your wild tales. See if anyone takes in a girl known for flights of fancy and dramatic falsehoods. Please, it's freezing. Should have thought of that before recording your slanderous thoughts. Eleanor threw the crumpled pages into the snow. If you return, I'll burn every last page of your precious writings. And then I'll tell your father you've abandoned him just as you abandoned your mother when she was dying. The lie struck harder than any physical blow. I never abandoned Mother. I was by her side until— Go! Eleanor shoved her through the gate, slamming it shut. Don't come back. Abigail stood in the swirling snow, watching as Eleanor strode back to the warmth of the house. The wind cut through her thin dress and her bare feet were already numb. To stay meant certain death from exposure. To go meant— what? Where could she go? Mrs. Green might help, but her home was 5 miles away on the other side of Pine Hollow. Abigail wouldn't survive that journey in this storm, not dressed as she was. The Thornton farm was closer, but with Emma gone, and Mr. Thornton's dislike of charity cases, she'd find no welcome there. Abigail began walking, following the fence line away from the house, away from the road. Her mother had once mentioned a hunting cabin somewhere in the woods beyond their property. If she could find it, perhaps she could survive the night. The snow deepened as she entered the forest, her dress catching on brambles, her feet bleeding from hidden stones and fallen branches. The wind howled through the pines, drowning out all other sounds. After what felt like hours, her strength began to fail. Each step became a battle against her body's growing desire to simply lie down and let the cold take her. Keep going, she whispered to herself, teeth chattering violently. Find the light. But there was no light, only endless white and black, snow and trees and darkness closing in. When she saw the faint glow through the trees, Abigail thought she was hallucinating. A final cruel trick of her dying mind. But as she stumbled forward, the light grew stronger. Not a cabin, but a proper house. A homestead she didn't recognize set back from the main road in a sheltered hollow. Smoke rose from the chimney. A lantern hung by the door. Warmth, safety, life. Her vision blurred. Her legs buckled. As Abigail collapsed into the snow, her last conscious thought was a prayer. Not for salvation this time, but for mercy. For whoever found her to be kind. The world went dark. Warmth came first. Then pain as sensation returned to her frozen limbs. Abigail moaned, trying to move away from the burning feeling that enveloped her. Easy now, a deep voice said. You're safe, but you need to stay still. Abigail forced her eyes open. A man knelt beside her, tall and broad-shouldered with a beard flecked with gray and eyes the color of storm clouds. His weathered face was lined with concern. Where? Her voice cracked, barely a whisper. Sullivan Farm. He dipped a cloth in water and pressed it gently to her forehead. I'm Owen Sullivan. Found you half buried in snow near my fence line. Abigail tried to sit up, but her body refused to cooperate. Don't try to move yet, Owen said firmly. You've got frostbite on your feet and hands. Dr. Green is on his way. Doctor! Panic surged through her. If Dr. Green came, Eleanor would learn where she was. No, please, I can't. You can, and you will. His tone brooked no argument, though his eyes remained kind. You nearly died out there, girl. What's your name? She hesitated, weighing truth against safety. I won't hurt you, he added quietly, seeming to read her fear. Whatever drove you into that storm, you're safe here. Abigail, she whispered finally. Abigail Fletcher. Something flickered across his face. Recognition, perhaps, or surprise, but he masked it quickly. Fletcher, Jonathan Fletcher's daughter. She nodded weakly. That's nearly 3 miles from here. You walked all that way barefoot in a blizzard. Before she could answer, the door opened, letting in a blast of cold air, and 3 children, their cheeks red from the cold, their arms laden with firewood. Papa, the barn door needs. The oldest, a girl of about 13, stopped short when she saw Abigail. Oh, she's awake. Behind her, a boy of 11 frowned suspiciously, while a small girl, no more than 6, pushed past them both to get a better look. Is she going to die? The youngest asked, blue eyes wide with curiosity rather than fear. Lucy, the older girl scolded. That's rude. No, Lucy, she's not going to die. Owen answered, a hint of warmth softening his stern features. But she needs rest and quiet. He gestured to his children. These are Hannah, Ethan, and Lucy, my children. Abigail managed a weak smile. Hello. Hannah approached cautiously, setting down her armload of wood. You were blue when Papa brought you in. I've never seen anyone that color before. Hannah, Owen warned, but Abigail found herself smiling again. I've never been that color before either, she whispered. Ethan remained by the door, his young face serious beneath a mop of dark hair. Where'd she come from? Miss Fletcher was caught in the storm, Owen explained, deliberately vague. She'll be staying with us until she's recovered. Miss Fletcher! Lucy scrambled closer, heedless of her father's attempt to maintain formality. Like from a storybook? Are you a princess? Despite everything, Abigail felt a small laugh escape her cracked lips. No, just a girl, like you. I'm going to be an explorer when I grow up, Lucy announced. Or maybe a doctor, or a horse trainer. I haven't decided yet. Lucy enough, Owen said, though his tone was gentle. Hannah, would you make some broth for our guest? Ethan finished bringing in that wood and build up the fire. Lucy, you can help Hannah. The children scattered to their tasks, though Ethan continued to cast suspicious glances toward Abigail. Once they were occupied, Owen turned back to her, his expression grave. Now, truth time. What were you doing out in that storm dressed in nothing but a cotton dress? And don't tell me you were just taking a walk. Abigail looked away. My stepmother and I disagreed. She put you out in this weather. His voice remained calm, but she could hear the anger beneath it. It's not the first time, Abigail admitted softly. Just the worst storm. Owen was silent for a long moment, his jaw working as if chewing on words he couldn't speak in front of children. Finally he said, Well, you're here now and you'll stay until you're healed. After that, we'll figure something out. A knock at the door interrupted them. Owen rose to answer it, admitting a snow-covered Dr. Green medical bag in hand. Nasty night to be out, Owen, the doctor said, stamping snow from his boots. Where's our patient? Owen led him to Abigail, who tried not to show her fear. Dr. Green's kind face registered shock when he recognized her. Abigail Fletcher, good Lord, child. He knelt beside her immediately, taking her pulse. I saw you just this morning at your father's house. What happened? Abigail glanced at Owen, uncertain how much to say. She was put out, Samuel, Owen said quietly. Found her collapsed near my property line. Dr. Green's expression darkened. Put out by whom? Surely not Jonathan. My stepmother, Abigail whispered. After the ladies' aid meeting, she found my journal, was angry about what I'd written. And what was that? The doctor asked gently, examining her reddened fingers. That father is getting worse, not better. That his medicine might be... She couldn't finish, afraid of the accusation. Dr. Green's hands stilled. I see. He glanced at Owen, something unspoken passing between the men. Let's focus on you for now. These feet need attention, and you're suffering from exposure. For the next hour, Dr. Green treated her frostbitten extremities, bandaging her feet and hands, and administering a bitter draught for fever. Throughout it all, Owen remained nearby, sending the children to bed, but staying vigilant, as if he feared Abigail might disappear. When the doctor finally packed his bag to leave, he pulled Owen aside. Abigail strained to hear their hushed conversation. Concerns about Jonathan's condition for months, Dr. Green was saying. Symptoms don't align with any natural illness, I know. You think the girl's suspicions have merit? Owen's voice, though quiet, carried his concern. I can't prove anything. Eleanor controls his food, his medicine, keeps me from examining him alone. A heavy sigh. But, yes, I've wondered. The authorities won't act without evidence, and Eleanor Mason has a spotless reputation in this town. So we do nothing. For now, we ensure this child recovers, Dr. Green's voice firmed. And we watch, document, build a case if there is one to build. The men shook hands, and Dr. Green approached Abigail one last time. Rest, young lady. That's an order. I'll return tomorrow to check on you. After the doctor left, Owen brought a bowl of the broth Hannah had prepared. He helped Abigail sit up, supporting her with pillows. Can you manage? He asked, offering the spoon. Yes, thank you. Her bandaged hands made it awkward, but she was determined not to be completely helpless. As she ate, Owen settled into a chair nearby, watching her with an unreadable expression. The silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, but heavy with unasked questions. Finally, Abigail spoke. Why are you helping me? Owen seemed startled by the directness of her question. Would you have preferred I left you to freeze? No, but you don't know me. I could be lying about everything. Are you? No. He nodded as if her answer confirmed something. I believe you. But why? Abigail pressed, needing to understand. Kindness without motive was foreign to her experience these past 3 years. Owen hesitated, then reached into his pocket and withdrew a folded piece of paper. This fell from your dress when I carried you in. Her mother's letter. Abigail's heart clenched. Did you read it? Yes. His expression softened with something like regret. I apologize for the invasion of privacy, but I needed to know who you were if there was family to contact. Abigail looked down at the broth, her appetite suddenly gone. And now you pity me. No. The firmness in his voice made her look up. I respect you. It takes courage to choose life when death seems easier. Heat flooded her cheeks. How much had he guessed about her midnight visit to the river? Your mother. Owen continued, handing the letter back to her. Margaret Fletcher. I knew her. Abigail's breath caught. You did. 10 years ago, there was a diphtheria outbreak in Pine Hollow. My wife Caroline fell ill, as did I. His eyes grew distant with memory. The doctor was overwhelmed. Too many sick, not enough medicine. Your mother came to our farm with herbal remedies she'd prepared, stayed up nights tending to us. That sounds like her, Abigail whispered, hungry for stories of the woman she'd lost too soon. She saved my life. Owen's voice roughened. Caroline, she was too far gone, but I survived because of Margaret Fletcher's knowledge and compassion. Understanding dawned. So this is repayment, a debt to my mother. No, Owen met her gaze directly. This is recognizing that the daughter of such a woman deserves better than to die in the snow because of cruelty. This is doing what's right, Abigail. Nothing more or less. Something in his tone, in the steadiness of his gray eyes, reached a part of Abigail that had been frozen long before the winter storm. A fragile hope that perhaps, just perhaps, there were still good people in the world. "Thank you," she said simply. Owen nodded once, then stood. "Rest now. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges." As he turned to bank the fire for the night, Abigail clutched her mother's letter. "Find the light. When darkness surrounds you," her mother had written. Perhaps this was what she meant. Not a physical light, but the illumination that comes from unexpected kindness. For the first time in years, Abigail slept without fear. Morning brought pale sunlight and the cheerful chaos of a household with children. Abigail woke to the sound of laughter and the smell of bacon frying, a combination so foreign to her recent existence that for a moment she thought she was still dreaming. Lucy discovered her awake first, bouncing onto the edge of the sofa where Abigail had spent the night. "You're alive, Papa said you would be, but you slept so long I thought maybe you turned into Sleeping Beauty." "Lucy, leave her be," Hannah called from the kitchen doorway, wooden spoon in hand. "Papa said not to bother her." "I'm not bothering, I'm welcoming," Lucy protested, but she slid off the sofa obediently. "Are your feet still attached?" Ethan said, "Sometimes people lose toes in the snow." "Lucy!" Hannah looked mortified. Abigail couldn't help but smile. "As far as I know, all my toes are still attached. Just sore." "Good. You need toes for dancing, and walking, and lots of things." Lucy nodded sagely before skipping back to the kitchen. Hannah approached, looking apologetic. "Sorry about her. She doesn't have a filter between her brain and her mouth." "It's all right. She's refreshing." Hannah studied her with intelligent eyes that reminded Abigail of Owen's penetrating gaze. "Papa says you're staying until you're better. Are you very sick?" "Just cold and tired," Abigail assured her. "And my feet need to heal." Hannah nodded, seemingly satisfied. "I made breakfast. Can you eat at the table, or should I bring you a tray?" Abigail considered her bandaged feet. "I think I can make it to the table with help." "I'll get Papa. He's in the barn with Ethan." Left alone, Abigail took stock of her surroundings for the first time. The Sullivan home was modest, but well-maintained. The main room served as both parlor and dining area, with a large stone fireplace dominating one wall. Simple, sturdy furniture filled the space, a wooden table with 6 chairs, a sofa, and 2 armchairs arranged near the fire shelves lined with books and a few treasured ornaments. What struck her most was the feeling of the place, lived in, warm, a true home, rather than a showpiece like Eleanor had made of the Fletcher farmhouse. The door opened, bringing a gust of cold air, and Owen Sullivan, his coat dusted with snow, his beard frosted at the edges. He removed his hat upon seeing her awake. "Good morning. Hannah says you're feeling well enough to join us at the table." "Yes, if it's not too much trouble." "No trouble." He crossed to her, offering his arm. "Lean on me. Dr. Green says those feet need a few days to heal properly." Abigail took his arm, surprised by how solid he felt, how secure. When she stood, pain shot through her feet, making her gasp. "Easy," Owen said, supporting more of her weight. "Small steps." Together, they made their way to the table where Hannah was setting out plates and Lucy was arranging forks with great concentration. Ethan entered from outside, carrying an armload of firewood, his expression still wary when he saw Abigail. "Wash up, son," Owen directed. "Breakfast is ready." As they settled around the table, Abigail felt suddenly self-conscious. She was an intruder in this family ritual, an outsider in their close-knit circle. But Owen simply passed her a plate of bacon and eggs, as if her presence at his table was the most natural thing in the world. "We say grace in this house," he told her, not unkindly. "Would you like to lead us, or shall I—" "You please," Abigail whispered, touched by the inclusion. Owen bowed his head, and his children followed suit. "Lord, we thank you for this food and for the hands that prepared it. We thank you for shelter from the storm and for bringing Miss Fletcher safely to our door. Guide us in the days ahead. Amen." "Amen," echoed the children, and to her surprise, Abigail found herself joining them. The meal proceeded with the comfortable chatter of family. Lucy dominated the conversation, jumping from topic to topic with dizzying speed. Hannah occasionally reined her in with sisterly patience. Ethan said little, focusing on his food, but Abigail caught him studying her when he thought she wasn't looking. After breakfast, Owen announced, "I need to check the north fence line. Ethan, you'll come with me. Hannah, your lessons this morning, then help Lucy with hers. Miss Fletcher needs rest, so try not to disturb her too much." "Can I show her my drawing book?" Lucy asked eagerly. Owen looked to Abigail, who nodded. "That would be nice." "Very well, but remember, she's recovering. No bouncing on furniture or loud stories." "I'll be good," Lucy promised solemnly, though her eyes twinkled with mischief. After breakfast, Owen helped Abigail back to the sofa, making sure she was comfortable before preparing to leave. As he donned his coat, he lowered his voice. "If you need anything, Hannah knows where everything is. Dr. Green should stop by midday." He hesitated. "No one from town knows you're here yet, except the doctor. I thought it best until we assess the situation." Abigail nodded, understanding his caution. "Thank you." A hint of a smile touched his lips, transforming his stern features briefly. "Rest, that's an order." After Owen and Ethan departed, the house settled into a different rhythm. Hannah sat at the table with books and papers, occasionally helping Lucy with simple sums and letters. Abigail watched them, remembering how her mother had taught her in the same way, patient, encouraging, building knowledge piece by piece. "Miss Fletcher?" Lucy approached, clutching a worn book. "Would you like to see my drawings?" "I'd love to." Lucy settled beside her, opening the book to reveal charcoal sketches. Crude, but full of life. Horses, chickens, fantastical creatures with wings and horns. "These are wonderful," Abigail said sincerely. Lucy beamed. "Papa got me the book for Christmas. Hannah helps me with the hard parts like hands and faces. You have talent. What's that?" "A special gift. Something you're naturally good at." Lucy considered this. "What's your talent, Miss Fletcher?" The question caught Abigail off guard. What was she good at? Eleanor had spent 3 years convincing her she was worthless, clumsy, stupid. I know about plants," she said finally. "Herbs and flowers. Which ones heal and which ones harm." "Like a witch." Lucy's eyes widened with delight rather than fear. "Lucy," Hannah called from the table, "that's not polite." "No, not a witch," Abigail said gently. "My mother was a healer. She taught me." "Could you teach me?" Lucy asked eagerly. "Perhaps, when spring comes and things grow again." Lucy nodded, satisfied with this promise. She flipped to a blank page in her book. "I'm going to draw you, but don't look until I'm finished." As Lucy sketched, Abigail found her eyelids growing heavy. The warmth of the fire, the safety of this house, the gentle scratching of Lucy's charcoal, all conspired to lull her toward sleep. She drifted off to the sound of Hannah's soft voice correcting Lucy's spelling, thinking that this must be what peace felt like. A knock at the door startled her awake. Hannah was already moving to answer it, Lucy hiding behind her skirts. "Dr. Green," Hannah greeted, opening the door wider. The doctor entered, shaking snow from his hat. "Good afternoon, Hannah. Lucy, how's our patient today?" "Sleeping a lot," Lucy reported, "but all her toes are still attached." Dr. Green chuckled, crossing to Abigail. "Good to hear. How are you feeling, my dear?" "Better," Abigail said truthfully. "Still sore, but warmer." "Let's have a look at those feet." As he unwrapped her bandages, Dr. Green spoke quietly. "I visited your father this morning." Abigail tensed. "How is he?" "Confused, weaker." The doctor's hands were gentle, but his expression grim. "Eleanor told him you'd run away, said you'd been planning it for weeks." Hot anger flashed through Abigail. "That's a lie. I would never abandon him." "I know." Dr. Green finished examining her feet, rewrapping them with fresh bandages. "The good news is you've escaped serious frostbite. Another hour out there, and you might have lost toes, if not worse." Did you tell Eleanor where I am?" "No." His voice was firm. "I said only that you were safe and being cared for." She seemed less concerned than one might expect. "She wants me gone," Abigail whispered. "Has for years." Dr. Green nodded, his kind face troubled. "I've had my suspicions about your home situation for some time. Mrs. Green as well. We should have acted sooner. No one would have believed me over her." "Perhaps. But now circumstances have forced the issue." He packed away his supplies. "You're to stay here until those feet heal completely. Doctor's orders. After that, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it." After he left, Abigail sat in silence, mind racing. Her father believed she'd abandoned him. Eleanor had won that round. But for the first time in years, Abigail wasn't alone in her suspicions, in her fear. Dr. Green knew something was wrong. And Owen Sullivan. Owen had taken her in without question. The door opened again, admitting Owen and Ethan, their cheeks ruddy from cold, their boots caked with snow. "Fence is secure," Owen announced, removing his coat. "No damage from the storm." His eyes found Abigail. "Dr. Green stopped by." She nodded. "He says my feet are healing well." "Good." Owen moved to the fire, warming his hands. "Ethan, get washed up and help Hannah with dinner preparations." The boy disappeared into the kitchen, still without having spoken directly to Abigail. Owen settled into the chair opposite her, his face serious. "The doctor told me he visited your father today. Said Eleanor Mason is spreading word that you ran away." "So I heard." "She'll eventually learn you're here. Pine Hollow isn't large enough for secrets to stay buried long." Abigail twisted her hands in her lap. "I can leave as soon as my feet heal. I don't want to bring trouble to your family." "That's not what I'm saying." Owen leaned forward, elbows on knees. "I'm saying we need to be prepared when she comes, and she will come." "Why would you take that risk for me?" Owen was silent for a long moment, his eyes moving to the mantelpiece where a small portrait stood. A woman with dark hair and gentle eyes. Caroline Sullivan, Abigail presumed. His late wife. "Because," he said, finally reaching into his pocket and withdrawing a folded paper, "I made a promise." He handed her the paper, not her mother's letter, but another document entirely. The handwriting was unfamiliar, the paper yellowed with age. "What is this?" Abigail asked, unfolding it carefully. "Read it," Owen said simply. The letter was dated October 15th, 1872, 10 years ago during the diphtheria outbreak. Owen had mentioned, "Mr. Sullivan, by the grace of God you have survived the fever that took your dear wife and so many others. As you recover your strength, I must ask one final favor before I return to my own family. Should anything ever happen to me, and should my daughter Abigail ever need shelter or protection, I beg you to provide it, if you are able. She is the light of my life, and I fear for her future in these uncertain times. My husband Jonathan is a good man, but easily influenced. If I am gone, he may not have the strength to protect our child as I would wish. I do not ask this lightly, nor do I expect you to upend your life. But if circumstances ever align where you might help her, please consider this request from one who helped you in your darkest hour. With deepest respect, Margaret Fletcher. Abigail's hands trembled as she finished reading. She knew, she whispered. Somehow, she knew I would need help someday. Your mother was perceptive, Owen said quietly. I've kept that letter all these years, never expecting to fulfill its request. Yet, here you are. So that's why you took me in, because of a decade-old promise. Partly. Owen's eyes met hers directly. But also because it was the right thing to do. And because he hesitated, seeming to choose his words carefully. Because I know what it is to be helpless while someone you love suffers. I couldn't save Caroline. Perhaps in some small way I can help honor Margaret's wish by protecting you. Abigail stared at the letter, her mother's foresight both comforting and terrifying. What had she seen in Jonathan in their future that prompted such a request? I don't know what to say, she admitted. You don't need to say anything. Owen stood reclaiming the letter gently. Just know that you have a place here for as long as necessary. Not out of obligation, but because it's right. As he turned to join the children in the kitchen, Abigail called after him. Mr. Sullivan. He paused, looking back. Thank you, not just for saving my life, but for seeing me as someone worth saving. Something flickered in his gray eyes, sadness perhaps, or understanding. He nodded once and continued on, leaving Abigail with the dawning realization that for the first time in 3 years, she was truly safe. That night, as snow continued to fall outside and the Sullivan household settled into sleep, Abigail lay awake on the sofa, listening to the crackle of the dying fire. Her mother's letter rested beneath her pillow, and the echo of Owen's promise resonated in her mind. Find the light when darkness surrounds you. Perhaps, just perhaps, she had. Days melted into one another like snow under gentle sunshine. Abigail's strength returned gradually, her body healing as her spirit awakened from its long dormancy. By the end of the first week, she could walk without assistance, though Dr. Green insisted she limit her activities. Your body has endured more than just frostbite, he explained during one of his visits. Years of poor nutrition and stress have taken their toll. Owen had set up a proper bed for her in a small alcove off the main room, offering privacy while keeping her close to the warmth of the fire. Each morning she woke to the sounds of life. Owen stoking the fire, Hannah preparing breakfast, Lucy's endless chatter, and Ethan's quiet movements as he completed his chores. It was a rhythm so different from the tense silence of the Fletcher farm that Abigail sometimes found herself simply listening, eyes closed, absorbing the normalcy of it all. On the 8th day, she insisted on helping with breakfast. You're a guest, Hannah protested, stirring a pot of oatmeal. I'm an extra pair of hands, Abigail countered gently. And I'm feeling better. Please, Hannah. I need to be useful. The girl studied her for a moment, then nodded. You can knead the bread dough. It's already mixed. Abigail smiled, rolling up her sleeves. Her hands remembered the motions, pushing, folding, turning, though it had been years since Eleanor had allowed her near anything as important as bread. You're good at that, Hannah observed, watching Abigail's confident movements. My mother taught me when I was younger than Lucy. said bread was sacred. Simple ingredients transformed by patience and care. Hannah's expression softened. My mother died when Lucy was born. I don't remember much about her cooking. I'm sorry. Abigail's hands stilled momentarily. It's hard losing a mother. Papa says she was beautiful and kind, but sometimes I think he's just telling us that, because that's what fathers are supposed to say. The candor in Hannah's voice surprised Abigail. Why do you think that? Hannah shrugged, turning back to her oatmeal. Just a feeling. He doesn't keep any pictures of her out, except that one on the mantel, and he never tells stories about her unless we ask. Grief affects people differently, Abigail said carefully. Some find comfort in memories. Others find them too painful. Maybe. Hannah added a pinch of salt to the pot. Did your father talk about your mother after she died? Abigail resumed, kneading the rhythmic motion, helping to order her thoughts. At first, yes, all the time. But then Eleanor came and the stories stopped. Was it quick? After your mother died, I mean, before your father remarried. 6 months. Abigail shaped the dough into a loaf, remembering that whirlwind courtship. Eleanor came to town as a widow seeking a fresh start. She was charming, beautiful, and she seemed so interested in Father's work. In me. Her voice tightened. It wasn't until after the wedding that she changed. Or perhaps she simply stopped pretending. Hannah was quiet for a moment. Papa hasn't remarried. It's been 6 years. Some people never do. Do you think he's lonely? The question, so innocent yet so profound, caught Abigail off guard. She looked toward the front window where Owen was visible in the yard, chopping wood with powerful, methodical strokes. I think, she said slowly, that loneliness comes in many forms. You can be surrounded by people and still feel it. Hannah nodded wisdom beyond her years in her solemn eyes. Like you were, before you came here. Abigail didn't answer, but she didn't need to. The understanding between them was complete. After breakfast, Owen announced his plans for the day. Ethan and I need to ride into town for supplies. We'll be gone most of the day. Abigail felt a flicker of anxiety. Town meant possible encounters with Eleanor or her allies. Don't worry, Owen said, reading her expression. We'll be discreet. No one will know our business. Ethan pulled on his coat, still maintaining his distance from Abigail, though she occasionally caught him watching her with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Hannah mind the house? Owen continued. Lucy, behave yourself. I always behave, Lucy protested, making her father's lips twitch with a suppressed smile. Miss Fletcher, Green says you're well enough for light activity. If you feel up to it, Hannah could use help with her lessons. Abigail brightened. I'd be happy to. After the men departed, the day settled into a peaceful routine. Abigail discovered that Hannah had a quick mind and a particular affinity for arithmetic. Lucy, though easily distracted, showed remarkable creativity in her storytelling. You're a good teacher, Hannah remarked, as they completed a particularly challenging set of problems. Thank you. I enjoy it. Abigail hesitated, then added, My mother was meant to be the schoolteacher in Pine Hollow before she married my father. She taught me at home instead. Is that why you know so much? Abigail smiled. I don't know so much. But yes, she believed girls should be educated just as thoroughly as boys. Lucy, who had been coloring quietly, looked up. Papa says the same thing. He makes Ethan help with cooking sometimes, even though Ethan says it's women's work. Your father sounds like a wise man. He is, Lucy said proudly. He knows everything, except maybe about dresses and hair ribbons. Hannah rolled her eyes affectionately. He tries his best with those, too. As the afternoon progressed, Abigail helped Hannah prepare dinner, a hearty stew with the last of their winter vegetables. The simple domesticity of the task soothed something in Abigail's soul. This was how a home should feel: warm, cooperative, filled with small kindnesses. "Hannah," she asked as they worked, "would you mind if I looked at your mother's herb garden? Your father mentioned she kept one." Hannah looked surprised. "How did you know about that?" "He told me your mother fell ill during the diphtheria outbreak. My mother was a healer who used herbs. I assumed she might have kept a garden of her own." "It's behind the house," Hannah said after a moment's consideration. "But there's nothing there now, just snow and old stalks. Still, I'd like to see it. Sometimes plants leave signs of what they were even in winter." Hannah shrugged. "If you want, but wear a heavy coat. Papa would be upset if you got sick again." Bundled in a borrowed coat and scarf, Abigail made her way to the small fenced plot behind the house. As Hannah had warned, it was mostly buried under snow, but Abigail could make out the skeleton of what had once been a well-tended garden. Dried stalks of what might have been lavender poked through the white blanket. The remains of a trellis suggested climbing roses or perhaps beans. She knelt, brushing away snow to reveal the frozen earth beneath. Even dormant a garden told stories about its keeper. This one spoke of order, purpose, and knowledge. Whoever had planted it understood the properties of herbs beyond simple cooking use. "Caroline Sullivan," Abigail murmured. "Who were you?" A rustling sound made her turn. Lucy stood watching her small face serious beneath a woolen cap. "Mama planted those," she said, pointing to a section near the fence. "Hannah told me. They're the purple flowers that smell nice. Lavender." Abigail nodded. "Good for calming nerves and helping sleep." "Did you know my mama?" Lucy asked, coming closer. "No, sweetheart. She died before I met your family." Lucy considered this. "I never knew her either. She died when I was born." She said this matter-of-factly, without the weight of guilt or grief that sometimes accompanied such statements. "That must be hard," Abigail said gently. "Sometimes, especially when the other girls at church talk about their mamas." Lucy knelt beside Abigail, poking at the snow. "Hannah tries to be like a mama, but she's still learning. She's doing a wonderful job." "Yes." Lucy looked up, her blue eyes serious. "But she needs someone to teach her the mama things, like you're teaching her about cooking and sums." Abigail felt her heart contract. "Lucy, I'm just a visitor. I won't be here forever." "Why not? Don't you like us?" "Of course I do. But I have my own father to worry about. And this is your family's home, not mine." Lucy frowned, clearly dissatisfied with this answer. "Papa smiles more since you came. Even Ethan doesn't frown as much, though he pretends he does." Before Abigail could respond, Hannah called from the back door. "Lucy, Abigail, come inside. It's getting colder." As they trudged back to the warmth of the house, Abigail pondered Lucy's words. Was it true that Owen smiled more? She had so little to compare to having known him only in this strange liminal period of her life. And Ethan, his continued wariness seemed at odds with Lucy's assessment. The rattle of a wagon announced Owen and Ethan's return just as the stew was ready. They entered amid a swirl of cold air, their arms laden with parcels and supplies. "Good timing," Hannah said, setting bowls on the table. Owen stomped snow from his boots, his face ruddy from the cold, but his expression troubled. He exchanged a glance with Ethan, who quickly busied himself with unpacking. "Everything all right?" Abigail asked, sensing the tension. "Fine," Owen replied too quickly. "Just tired. It's a long ride in this weather." But throughout dinner, she noticed how his gaze frequently drifted to the window, as if expecting visitors. Ethan was unusually quiet, even for him, focusing intently on his food. After the children were in bed, Owen lingered by the fire, staring into the flames with a preoccupied expression. Abigail, who had been reading one of the family's few books, closed it quietly. "Something happened in town," she said. Not a question. Owen looked up, seeming to debate whether to share his concerns. Finally, he sighed. "Eleanor Mason was asking questions. About you." Abigail's stomach tightened. "What kind of questions? If anyone had seen you, if there were rumors of you staying with certain families." He rubbed his beard thoughtfully. "She was particularly interested in Dr. Green's recent house calls." "Does she suspect I'm here?" "Not yet, but she's persistent." Owen leaned forward, his voice lowering. "There's more. Your father's condition has worsened. There's talk of sending for a specialist from Helena." "A specialist Eleanor has chosen, no doubt." Abigail's hands clenched in her lap. "She's accelerating her plan. With me gone, there's nothing stopping her from—" She couldn't finish the sentence. The thought of her father dying slowly, believing his daughter had abandoned him, was unbearable. "Dr. Green is doing what he can," Owen assured her. "He's documenting everything, building a case. A case that will come too late to save my father." Abigail stood pacing despite her still tender feet. "I should go back, confront her." "And what would that accomplish? She'd deny everything, paint you as hysterical or worse. At least I'd be there. He wouldn't die alone thinking I'd left him." Owen's expression softened. "Abigail, your father is being cared for. Not as he should be, perhaps, but he's not alone. And you returning now would only put you in danger again. So I do nothing, just hide here while she poisons him." "No." Owen stood his height, making him imposing even as his voice remained gentle. "You heal, you gather strength, and when the time is right, you fight. Not with accusations and emotion, but with evidence and allies." Abigail stared at him, caught between frustration and recognition of his wisdom. "How can you be so calm about this? If it were Hannah or Lucy or Ethan in danger." "I'd want to tear the world apart," he acknowledged, "but I'd also want to be sure my actions helped rather than harmed them." His steady gaze anchored her, cooling the panic that threatened to overwhelm her reason. "You're right," she admitted finally. "I know you're right, but it's hard." "The right path usually is." He moved to the bookshelf, selecting a small volume. "Here, my wife's journal, her garden notes. You seemed interested in the herb plot earlier." Abigail accepted the book, surprised by the offering. "Thank you, but why?" "Caroline was knowledgeable about plants. Not as your mother was, perhaps, but she kept careful records. It might give you something to focus on, besides worry." The gesture touched her deeply. This was no casual loan. It was a piece of his past, his loss, shared with her. "I'll be careful with it," she promised. Owen nodded once, then moved toward his bedroom door. "Rest, Abigail. Tomorrow brings its own troubles." Alone by the fire, Abigail opened Caroline Sullivan's journal. The handwriting was neat, precise, the work of an ordered mind. Diagrams of garden layouts, lists of plants with their properties, notes on growing conditions and harvest times. But as she read deeper, she found more than gardening instructions. Between entries about lavender and rosemary were personal reflections, hopes, fears, a woman's inner life recorded in private moments. April 3rd, 1869. The baby kicked today. Owen felt it too, though he tried to hide how it affected him. This marriage may not be what either of us planned, but perhaps this child will bring us closer. Abigail paused, rereading the line. Not what either of us planned. She turned the page. June 12, 1869. Owen is building a cradle. He works on it every evening after chores. I catch him sometimes just staring at the wood, as if seeing the future. He will be a good father. Perhaps that will be enough. Another entry. Months later, September 28, 1869. Hannah Rose Sullivan arrived yesterday at dawn. She is perfect. Owen held her with such tenderness. For a moment, looking at them together, I could almost believe he loves me as a husband should love a wife. But I know better. His heart remains with Emily, though she chose another. Still, he is kind, and for our daughter's sake, we will build a life worthy of her. Abigail closed the book, feeling like an intruder. Owen had given her the journal for its gardening knowledge, surely not expecting her to read these intimate confessions. Caroline's words painted a picture of a marriage built on mutual respect rather than passion, an arrangement rather than a love match. Was this what Hannah had sensed? The absence of romantic stories, of the small affections that colored a love-filled marriage, Abigail slipped the journal beneath her pillow, promising herself she would focus only on the herbal information tomorrow. Some secrets weren't hers to know. The following days established a new pattern. Abigail integrated herself into the Sullivan household routine, helping Hannah with cooking and lessons playing with Lucy, and slowly earning Ethan's grudging acceptance through her willingness to tackle any chore without complaint. Owen remained somewhat distant, though unfailingly kind. He spent long hours outside repairing winter damage to fences and outbuildings, preparing for spring planting, though the ground remained frozen. One afternoon, as Abigail hung laundry on a line strung across the porch, the day being too cold for outdoor drying, she noticed Ethan watching her from the woodpile. Instead of turning away as he usually did when caught staring, he approached hesitantly. "You do that different," he said, nodding toward the sheet she had just hung. "Different how? You fold the corners first. Hannah just pins them straight." Abigail smiled. "My mother taught me this way. It keeps the corners from fraying as quickly." Ethan considered this, then asked, "Did your mother teach you a lot of things?" "Yes, she believed in practical knowledge. Cooking, sewing, gardening, reading and writing, too. Hannah tries to teach us, but—" He trailed off, looking embarrassed. "But it's not the same as having a mother show you," Abigail finished gently. He nodded relief in his young face at being understood without having to explain. "Your sister does a remarkable job," Abigail said. "She was very young when she had to take on so much responsibility." "I help," Ethan said quickly, defensively. "I do the man's work with Papa." "I've noticed. You're very capable." His chest puffed slightly at the praise. "Papa says I'm nearly as strong as he was at my age." "I believe it." Abigail reached for another sheet. "Would you like to learn this folding method? You could show Hannah later." Ethan hesitated, caught between curiosity and his lingering wariness. Finally, curiosity won. "All right." For the next several minutes, Abigail demonstrated the technique, pleased when Ethan caught on quickly. His serious face relaxed as they worked together, and by the time the laundry basket was empty, a fragile bridge had been built between them. "Miss Fletcher," he asked as they gathered the empty basket, "are you going to stay? Lucy thinks you are, but Hannah says probably not." The directness of the question, coming after days of silence, startled her. "I don't know, Ethan. My father is still in Pine Hollow. He's very ill." "Because of your stepmother." At her surprised look, he added, "I heard Papa talking to Dr. Green." "That's part of it, yes," Ethan nodded solemnly. "If someone was hurting my pa, I'd want to stop them, too." The simple statement, with its unquestioning acceptance of her situation, touched Abigail deeply. "That's very understanding of you." He shrugged, suddenly self-conscious again. "Papa says we should judge people by their actions, not rumors. You work hard, and you made Hannah smile when you fixed her hair yesterday." Before Abigail could respond, the sound of approaching hoofbeats drew their attention. Owen, who had been working in the barn, emerged immediately, his posture alert. "Inside, both of you," he ordered, his voice leaving no room for argument. Ethan grabbed the laundry basket and hurried into the house. Abigail followed more slowly, her heart racing. From the window she watched as a single rider approached, not Eleanor or the sheriff, but Muksu Benjamin Porter, his black coat stark against the winter landscape. Owen relaxed visibly, walking out to meet the visitor. They spoke briefly before both men headed toward the house. "Hannah," Abigail called softly, "we have a visitor, Muksu Porter." The girl appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "On a Tuesday? That's strange." Before Abigail could respond, the door opened, admitting Owen and the minister. Muksu Porter was a tall, thin man with silver hair and kind eyes that belied his stern reputation. Those eyes widened slightly when they fell on Abigail. "Miss Fletcher," he said, removing his hat, "I'm relieved to see you well." "Thank you, sir," Abigail replied cautiously. "Children," Owen said, "give us a few minutes. Hannah, take Lucy and Ethan to finish their lessons in the bedroom." Once they were alone, Muksu Porter settled into a chair by the fire, accepting the coffee Owen offered. "I won't waste time with pleasantries," he said after a sip. "Eleanor Mason came to see me yesterday. She's quite determined to locate you, Miss Fletcher." Abigail tensed. "Did you tell her I'm here?" "No. I told her only that I was certain you were safe, and that running away is often a symptom of deeper problems at home." The minister's eyes were shrewd. "I've had concerns about that household for some time." "What exactly did she say?" Owen asked, standing protectively near Abigail's chair. "That her stepdaughter had stolen valuables and fled. That the girl was mentally unstable, prone to wild fabrications. That Jonathan was distraught." Muksu Porter's mouth tightened. She wept quite convincingly throughout. "And you didn't believe her?" Abigail said, surprised. "My dear, I've been a minister for 40 years. I've seen genuine grief and manufactured tears. I know the difference." He set down his cup. "More importantly, I've observed Eleanor Mason in church. The way she presents herself to the congregation versus how she speaks to you when she thinks no one is watching." Hope flickered in Abigail's chest. "Then you know she's not what she seems." "I suspect it, but suspicion isn't proof." He leaned forward. "What I need to know is what drove you out into that blizzard. The truth, child." Abigail glanced at Owen, who nodded encouragingly. She took a deep breath and began her story. The years of mistreatment, her father's mysterious decline, the journal Eleanor had discovered, and her violent reaction to it. Muksu Porter listened without interruption, his expression growing graver with each detail. When she finished, he remained silent for a long moment. "You believe she's poisoning your father," he said finally. "Do you have evidence?" "Only what I've observed. The medicine she gives him nightly. His symptoms that don't align with any natural illness. The way she isolates him from visitors, even Dr. Green." The minister nodded slowly. "Samuel Green has shared similar concerns with me. He's a good man, cautious about making accusations without proof, but troubled nonetheless." "What can be done?" Owen asked. "Jonathan Fletcher is declining rapidly by all accounts." "Legally, very little without evidence. Eleanor is his wife, his designated caretaker. Muksu Porter sighed heavily. But perhaps there are other approaches. The church ladies who visit, they see much that others don't. And Eleanor is eager to maintain her standing in the community. She cares deeply about appearances, Abigail agreed. It's why she never struck me where marks would show. A muscle tightened in Owen's jaw at this casual confirmation of abuse, but he remained silent. Then we use that, the minister said firmly. I'll arrange more frequent visits to the Fletcher home. Pastoral calls to check on Jonathan's welfare. Mrs. Green can organize additional ladies' aid meetings there. The more eyes watching Eleanor, the more careful she'll need to be. And in the meantime, Owen asked, Abigail stays here. Yes, at least until we have a clearer picture of the situation. Muksu Porter turned to Abigail. Unless you wish to return, my dear. No, she said quickly. But my father, he thinks I abandoned him. I'll speak with him privately. Let him know you're safe and thinking of him. The minister's kind eyes held hers. And I'll pray for his recovery, though I fear divine intervention may be our best hope at this point. After he departed, Owen and Abigail sat in silence, the weight of the situation pressing down on them both. He believes me, Abigail said, finally wonder in her voice. Muksu Porter actually believes me. Did you doubt he would? I've learned to expect disbelief. Eleanor is very convincing. Owen's expression darkened. Evil often is. It clothes itself in righteousness and charm to move freely among good people. You sound like you speak from experience. He was quiet for a moment, his gaze distant. I've encountered people who weren't what they seemed, learned the hard way to look deeper than pleasant words and smiling faces. Something in his tone made Abigail think of Caroline's journal entries. Had Owen's first marriage taught him that painful lesson? Before she could pursue the thought, Hannah called from the bedroom asking permission to resume dinner preparations. The moment for confidences passed, and the household returned to its routine. That night, a fierce storm blew in from the mountains, rattling windows and howling around the eaves like a living thing. Abigail lay awake, listening to the wind and thinking of her father alone in his sick room with only Eleanor for company. A soft knock at her alcove entrance startled her. Yes. Lucy stood there, a small shadow clutching a blanket. I'm scared, she whispered. The wind sounds like wolves. Abigail smiled, lifting her covers. Come here. The child scrambled in beside her, her small body radiating warmth. Hannah says it's silly to be afraid of storms. It's not silly at all. Storms are powerful things. Papa says they're just God's way of clearing out the old to make room for new growth. That's a wise way to look at it. Lucy snuggled closer. Will you tell me a story Mama used to tell Hannah stories during storms? How do you know that, if you were a baby when she died? Hannah told me. She remembers some things. Abigail smoothed Lucy's tangled hair. What kind of story would you like? A true one. About your mama. The request caught Abigail off guard, but as the wind moaned outside, she found herself wanting to share the memories she kept close to her heart. My mother loved thunderstorms, she began softly. When lightning flashed, she would count the seconds until thunder came. That's how far away the storm is, she told me. Each second is a mile. Did she ever get scared? Everyone gets scared sometimes, but she said fear was just our body's way of telling us to pay attention. Abigail smiled at the memory. Once during a terrible summer storm, a tree near our house was struck by lightning. It split right down the middle, catching fire despite the rain. My father was away, and I was terrified. but Mother just calmly filled buckets and showed me how to form a line to pass water. Together, we saved the house. She was brave, Lucy murmured sleepily. Yes, and smart. The next day she showed me how lightning had changed the tree, not just destroyed it, but transformed it. The heat had created beautiful patterns in the wood. Nature is an artist, she said. Even in destruction, there is creation. Lucy's breathing had deepened, her small body growing heavy with sleep. Abigail continued her story anyway, the words a comfort to herself as much as the child. She taught me to see beauty everywhere. In weeds that most people pulled without a second thought. In storms that frightened others. In the cycles of life and death that make up the natural world. Abigail's voice caught. She would have loved you, Lucy. Your curiosity. Your big heart. Lucy mumbled, already drifting into dreams. Love you too. The simple unconscious words pierced Abigail's heart. This child who had known her barely 2 weeks offered love so freely. The Sullivans had taken her in, fed her, protected her, not out of obligation or pity, but out of genuine kindness. They had given her a glimpse of what family could be, should be. And when her father was well again, when the situation with Eleanor was resolved, what then? The question haunted her as she finally drifted to sleep. Lucy's steady breathing a counterpoint to the raging storm outside. Morning brought pale sunshine and a blanket of fresh snow. Lucy was gone when Abigail woke, likely summoned by Hannah for breakfast preparations. The storm had passed, leaving the world transformed, pristine, unblemished white covering every surface. As Abigail dressed, she heard voices from the main room, Owen speaking with someone whose deep tones she didn't recognize. She hastened to make herself presentable, conscious of being a guest in another's home. When she emerged, she found Owen standing with Dr. Green and a stranger, a tall, distinguished-looking man with silver-streaked dark hair and a neatly trimmed beard. "Ah, Miss Fletcher," Dr. Green said, smiling warmly. "Good morning. I hope we didn't wake you." "No, I was just getting up." Abigail's gaze moved to the stranger, questioning. "This is Dr. James Wilson," Green introduced. "A colleague from Helena who specializes in difficult cases. He's here about your father." Abigail's heart skipped. "Has something happened?" "Your father had a severe episode last night," Dr. Green explained gently. "Seizures, delirium. Eleanor sent for me, and I requested Dr. Wilson's expertise." "Is he—" Abigail couldn't finish the question. "He's stable for now," Dr. Wilson assured her, his voice cultured, precise. "But his condition is indeed puzzling, Dorn." Green has shared his concerns about possible, unnatural causes. "You mean poison?" Abigail said bluntly. "Potentially, yes. Certain compounds can produce symptoms similar to what your father is experiencing. Arsenic, for instance, when administered in small doses over time." Owen, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "Can you prove it?" "With proper testing, yes, but I would need samples, hair, nails, blood, and access to anything he's been consuming." "Eleanor won't allow that," Abigail said bitterly. "She barely lets Dr. Green examine him alone, which is why we need to be strategic," Dr. Green interjected. "Dr. Wilson is staying with us for a few days. Officially, he's consulting on several cases. Unofficially, he's here specifically for your father. We've devised a plan," Dr. Wilson continued. "With Muksu Porter's assistance, we'll arrange a church visit to your father tomorrow. Eleanor won't refuse the minister, especially if several prominent church members accompany him. During the visit, I'll be introduced as a visiting physician interested in meeting the community. It gives me a reason to be present, and perhaps a few moments alone with your father." Hope bloomed in Abigail's chest. Do you think it will work? It has a reasonable chance of success, Dr. Wilson replied cautiously. But I must warn you, even if we confirm poisoning proving who administered it is another matter entirely. One step at a time, Owen said firmly. First, confirm what's happening to Jonathan. Then we can address who's responsible. Dr. Green nodded. Precisely. Now, Miss Fletcher, we have another matter to discuss. Your presence at this visit. Abigail straightened. I want to see my father. And I believe it would do him good to see you, the doctor agreed. But Eleanor will undoubtedly react strongly. Are you prepared for that confrontation? Yes. Abigail's voice was steady, though her hands trembled slightly. I need to see him, and he needs to know I didn't abandon him. Very well. Owen, will you accompany her? Having a respected member of the community with her will add legitimacy to her return. Owen nodded without hesitation. Of course. Excellent. Then it's settled. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock, we converge on the Fletcher farm under the guise of a pastoral visit. Dr. Green smiled grimly. Eleanor Mason is about to discover that Pine Hollow protects its own. After the doctors departed, Owen found Abigail standing by the window watching as their wagon disappeared down the snowy lane. Are you certain about this? He asked quietly. Seeing your father in his current state may be difficult. And confronting Eleanor, I'm terrified, Abigail admitted. But I need to do this. For him. For myself. Owen's hand came to rest briefly on her shoulder. A gesture of support there and gone so quickly, she might have imagined it. Then we'll face it together. The simple promise spoken in his steady voice steadied her more than any elaborate reassurance could have. Thank you. That evening, as Hannah and Abigail prepared supper, the girl seemed unusually quiet, her movements mechanical as she chopped vegetables. Is everything all right? Abigail asked gently. Hannah didn't look up. You're leaving tomorrow. Just to visit my father. I'll be coming back. For how long? Hannah's knife stilled. Papa says your father is very sick. If he dies, will you stay here or go somewhere else? The question caught Abigail unprepared. She hadn't allowed herself to think beyond the immediate crisis, beyond seeing her father confirming Dr. Wilson's suspicions, confronting Eleanor. I don't know, she answered honestly. So much depends on what happens tomorrow. Hannah nodded, resuming her chopping with renewed vigor. Lucy will be upset if you go. She's already decided you're staying forever. And would you be upset? The girl's shoulders tensed. It doesn't matter what I think. You'll do what's best for you. Hannah. Abigail gently took the knife from her hands, setting it aside. Of course it matters. Your feelings, Ethan's, Lucy's, they all matter to me. But not enough to stay, Hannah whispered, her composure finally cracking. Just like Mama. Everyone leaves. Oh, Hannah. Abigail pulled the girl into a hug, feeling her stiffen before gradually relaxing into the embrace. Your mother didn't choose to leave you. And whatever happens with me, it won't be because I want to go. Promise. Hannah's voice was muffled against Abigail's shoulder. I promise that I will always care about you no matter where I am. And that I will never disappear from your life without saying goodbye properly. Was the most honest promise Abigail could make, given the uncertainties ahead. Hannah pulled back, wiping her eyes quickly. We should finish supper. Papa and Ethan will be hungry. The moment of vulnerability had passed, the girl's composure restored. But something had shifted between them. A deeper understanding, a mutual acknowledgement of the bonds that had formed so quickly, yet felt so fundamental. That night, as the household settled into sleep, Abigail sat by the dying fire, Caroline's journal open in her lap. She had been studying the herbal entries, looking for anything that might help her father. But her mind kept returning to Hannah's fears and Lucy's innocent attachment. In just weeks, she had become woven into the fabric of this family. They had saved her life, but more than that, they had saved her spirit, reminded her what it meant to be valued, to belong. The thought of leaving, of returning to solitude even without Eleanor's cruelty, was more painful than she had anticipated. A floorboard creaked, and Abigail looked up to find Owen standing in the doorway of his bedroom watching her. "Can't sleep?" he asked softly. "Too much on my mind." He nodded, crossing to sit in the chair opposite hers. In the firelight his features seemed softer. The stern lines of his face relaxed into something gentler. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to the journal. Abigail handed it over, hoping he wouldn't notice how far into the personal entries she had read. "I was looking for herbal remedies that might help counteract poison." "And did you find anything?" "Not specifically, but there's a tea mixture your wife recorded, charcoal, ginger, and mint, that she used for stomach ailments. Charcoal is known to absorb toxins." Owen's fingers traced the handwriting on the page. "Caroline was knowledgeable about such things. Not as your mother was, perhaps, but she had a gift for healing. You must miss her very much." He was silent for a long moment, his eyes still on the journal. "I miss what she represented. Stability, partnership, someone who understood the weight of responsibilities." It was an honest answer, but not quite what Abigail had expected. Not a declaration of undying love or overwhelming grief, but an acknowledgement of profound respect. "The children speak of her so rarely," Abigail ventured. "Is that by design?" Owen closed the journal carefully. "Not entirely. Ethan was 5 when she died. Hannah 7. They have memories, but fragmented ones. And Lucy," he sighed. "Lucy knows her mother only through stories, which I perhaps haven't shared enough." "Why is that?" His eyes met hers, surprisingly vulnerable in the firelight. "Because I'm not certain what to tell them. The truth, that ours was a marriage of convenience rather than passion. That their mother was a wonderful woman who deserved more than I could give her, or the comforting fiction that we were deeply in love." Abigail's breath caught. So her reading of the journal had been accurate. Theirs had been an arranged match, not a love match. "I think," she said carefully, "that children deserve truth delivered with kindness. That knowing their mother was a woman of courage and principle who chose to build a family with a good man, regardless of romantic feelings, is a powerful legacy." Owen studied her, his expression unreadable. "You speak from experience." "In a way. My father never told me the full truth about Eleanor, about her manipulations, her true nature. He thought he was protecting me. Instead, he left me vulnerable. And that's why you keep your journal, to record truth even when it's painful." "Yeah." They sat in companionable silence, the fire crackling softly as it burned down to embers. Outside, an owl called its lonely cry echoing across the snow-covered landscape. "Tomorrow will be difficult," Owen said finally, "seeing your father in his diminished state. Facing Eleanor. I know. Remember that you're not alone." His voice was quiet, but firm. "Whatever happens, you have allies now. People who believe you. People who—" He hesitated, then finished simply, "people who care about you." The words, so plainly spoken, yet so profound in meaning, warmed Abigail more than the fire ever could. "Thank you, Owen." It was the first time she had used his given name, and the shift felt significant. an acknowledgement of growing trust of boundaries, gently receding. "You should rest," he said, rising from his chair. "Tomorrow will demand all your strength." As he turned to go, Abigail called softly after him. "Owen." He paused, looking back. "I care about all of you, too. However this ends, I want you to know that." A smile, the first true unguarded smile she had seen from him, transformed his face briefly. He nodded once, then disappeared into his room, leaving Abigail to contemplate the strange, unexpected bonds that had formed in the crucible of crisis. Tomorrow would indeed bring challenges, but tonight, in this moment, she was no longer alone in the world. And that knowledge gave her the courage to face whatever lay ahead. Morning dawned clear and cold, the sky a brilliant blue that belied the tension running through the Sullivan household. Hannah prepared a hearty breakfast, her movements precise, almost ritualistic, as if proper execution of this routine could somehow ensure all would be well. Ethan was unusually solicitous, carrying wood and water without being asked. Lucy alone maintained her normal exuberance, chattering about everything and nothing, oblivious to the undercurrents around her. Owen ate little, his gaze frequently drifting to the window, to the road that would take them to Pine Hollow, and the confrontation that awaited. Abigail found herself unable to eat at all, her stomach knotted with anxiety. "You need strength," Owen said quietly, pushing a plate of eggs toward her. "Just a few bites." She managed to comply, though each mouthful seemed to stick in her throat. The simple concern in his voice, the way he watched to ensure she ate, these small kindnesses nearly undid her composure. As the appointed hour approached, Owen brought out a bundle of clothing. A dress of deep blue wool, clearly well made, though not new, and a matching coat and bonnet. "These were Caroline's," he explained somewhat awkwardly. Hannah thought, "That is, for your visit to town, you might—" "They're beautiful," Abigail said, touching the fabric reverently. "But I couldn't possibly—" "Please," Hannah interrupted, stepping forward. "Mama would have wanted them used, not just stored away. And you shouldn't have to face that woman wearing borrowed everyday clothes." The gesture, so thoughtful and so significant, brought tears to Abigail's eyes. To wear Caroline Sullivan's clothes was to be wrapped in the family's protection, to carry a piece of their history with her. "Thank you," she whispered, accepting the bundle. "I'll wear them with honor." The dress fit remarkably well, requiring only minor adjustments to the length. As Abigail buttoned the coat, finer than anything she had owned since her mother's death, she caught a glimpse of herself in the small mirror hanging by the door. The woman who looked back was not the frightened girl who had fled into a blizzard. This woman stood straight, her eyes clear, and determined, her appearance respectable, rather than desperate. "Ready?" Owen asked, his own coat and hat already in place. Abigail nodded, though her heart thundered in her chest. "Ready." The children gathered to see them off, Hannah maintaining her composure, while Lucy clung to Abigail's skirts. "You'll come back?" the little girl asked, her face solemn. "Yes," Abigail promised, kneeling to embrace her. "Before you know it." Ethan hung back, his expression troubled, until Abigail approached him directly. "Take care of your sisters while we're gone." He nodded seriously. "Yes, ma'am. Good man." She hesitated, then added, "Thank you, Ethan, for giving me a chance." A flush crept up his neck, but he met her eyes steadily. "You're not what I expected." "Neither are you," she replied with a smile. "And I mean that as a compliment." Finally, she turned to Hannah, who was working hard to maintain her adult composure. "The dress is perfect," Abigail told her. "I feel stronger wearing it." "Good." Hannah's voice wavered only slightly. "Mama was strong, too." The ride to Pine Hollow seemed both endless and too brief. Owen drove the wagon steadily, neither rushing nor delaying the inevitable confrontation. They spoke little, each lost in their own thoughts. But his presence beside her was a comfort beyond words. As they crested the final hill, Pine Hollow spread before them. A small collection of buildings nestled in the valley's smoke, rising from chimneys against the winter sky. And beyond the town proper, the Fletcher farm, once her sanctuary, now the site of her greatest fears. "Whatever happens," Owen said quietly, "remember why we're here. To confirm your father's condition. To give Dr. Wilson access. The confrontation with Eleanor is secondary." Abigail nodded, drawing a deep breath of the cold air to steady herself. "I understand. And, Abigail," his voice softened, "you are not alone." 4 simple words. Yet they carried her through the town past curious eyes and whispered comments. They sustained her as the wagon approached the farmhouse where she had suffered so much. They echoed in her mind as she saw other vehicles already gathered. Dr. Green's buggy, Muksu Porter's carriage, several others belonging to church members. And they gave her the strength to stand tall as the front door opened and Eleanor Mason Fletcher stepped onto the porch, her face a mask of shock that quickly transformed into calculated concern. "Abigail!" she called, one hand pressed dramatically to her heart. "Oh, my dear child, you've come home at last." The performance had begun, but this time Abigail wasn't alone in the audience. This time she was ready. Eleanor's arms opened wide, her face a perfect portrait of maternal concern. The church ladies gathered on the porch behind her murmured sympathetically at the touching reunion about to unfold. "My poor confused child," Eleanor called, descending the steps with theatrical grace. "We've been so worried." Abigail remained rooted beside the wagon, Owen a steady presence at her shoulder. The practiced performance before her, one she had witnessed countless times, now seemed transparent hollow. How had others not seen through this facade? "Mrs. Fletcher," Owen said, his deep voice cutting through the charade, "we've come at Muksu Porter's invitation to visit Jonathan." Eleanor's gaze shifted to him, her expression cooling briefly before the mask slipped back into place. "Mr. Sullivan, how unexpected. I wasn't aware you knew my stepdaughter." "Recent acquaintance," he replied evenly. "May we come in? The minister is expecting us." "Of course." Eleanor's smile remained fixed, though her eyes hardened. She turned to the onlookers. "What a blessing that our prodigal has returned on the very day we gather to pray for Jonathan's recovery." Mrs. Holcomb, leader of the Ladies' Aid Society, nodded approvingly. "The Lord works in mysterious ways." As they moved toward the house, Eleanor maneuvered close to Abigail, gripping her arm with fingers that dug painfully into flesh. "What game are you playing?" she hissed, her smile never faltering for those watching. "No game," Abigail replied softly. "I'm here to see my father. He's very ill, too ill for excitement or upsetting conversations." "Then we'll keep things calm, won't we?" Eleanor's nails dug deeper, but Abigail didn't flinch. She was beyond such petty intimidation now. The farmhouse interior was just as Abigail remembered. Polished to a shine, every surface gleaming, the air heavy with beeswax and pine. The parlor had been arranged for visitors with chairs in a semicircle, and a small table bearing a Bible and prayer book. Muksu Porter stood as they entered, relief evident in his eyes when he saw Abigail. "Miss Fletcher, welcome home." He extended his hand deliberately, placing himself between her and Eleanor. "Your father will be comforted by your presence." "Is he awake?" Abigail asked anxiously. "In and out," said Dr. Green, who stood by the window with another man Abigail recognized as Dr. Wilson. But he has moments of clarity. "I'll take you to him," the minister offered before Eleanor could intervene. "Mrs. Fletcher, perhaps you could see to refreshments for our guests. Mrs. Holcomb was just saying how she'd love a cup of your excellent tea." It was a masterful move. Eleanor couldn't refuse without appearing inhospitable, yet it effectively separated her from Abigail. "Of course," she agreed, her tone pleasant, though her eyes flashed with annoyance. "I'll just be a moment." As Eleanor retreated to the kitchen, Moksu Porter guided Abigail toward the small bedroom off the main room. Owen followed close behind his solid presence, a shield against the curious stares of the church ladies. "We don't have much time," the minister murmured. "Dr. Wilson needs a few moments alone with your father. And you should prepare yourself, child. Jonathan's condition has deteriorated significantly." Abigail nodded, steeling herself as the minister opened the door to her father's sick room. The smell hit her first, medicinal, yes, but underneath the sour odor of illness and decay. The room was dim curtains drawn against the winter light, a single lamp burning low on the bedside table. And there, in the narrow bed that had replaced the grand four-poster he once shared with her mother, lay Jonathan Fletcher. Abigail barely recognized him. The robust man who had once lifted her onto his shoulders, who had worked from dawn to dusk in all weather, was now a skeletal figure buried beneath blankets. His cheeks were sunken, his once thick hair thin and lank. His eyes were closed, his breathing shallow and irregular. "Father," she whispered, moving to the bedside. "It's Abigail." For a moment, there was no response. Then his eyelids fluttered opening to reveal eyes clouded with confusion. "Abby!" His voice was a rasp, barely audible. "Is it really you?" "Yes, Father." She took his hand, so thin the bones clearly visible beneath papery skin. "I'm here. They said, ran away, abandoned me." His gaze drifted unfocused. "No, Father, never. I would never abandon you." Abigail fought to keep her voice steady. "I've been safe staying with friends, but I've thought of you every day." His fingers twitched in hers, a weak attempt to squeeze her hand. "Not well, Abby. Something wrong with me." "I know. Dr. Green is here and another doctor. They're going to help you." Jonathan's eyes cleared momentarily, a flash of the man he once was breaking through the fog. "Eleanor, she gives me medicine. Tastes bitter. Makes me confused." Abigail glanced at Dr. Wilson, who had moved quietly to the other side of the bed. He nodded encouragingly. "What color is the medicine, Mr. Fletcher?" he asked gently. Jonathan's gaze shifted with effort. "Who?" "A friend," Abigail assured him. "A doctor helping Dr. Green. Please, Father, the medicine Eleanor gives you. What does it look like?" "Dark. Like strong tea." His voice faded, strength ebbing. "In a blue bottle. She mixes it in my evening drink." Dr. Wilson exchanged a significant look with Dr. Green. "Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. That's very helpful." Jonathan's eyes found Abigail again, suddenly urgent. "Don't leave me with her, Abby. She's not what she seems." "I know, Father." Abigail stroked his thin hand. "I'm going to fix this. I promise." His eyes drifted closed, exhaustion claiming him once more. Abigail continued to hold his hand, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. The transformation in him was shocking, far worse than she had imagined. "How long?" she asked, not looking up. At this rate, Dr. Green's voice was grim. "Weeks at most, without intervention." "He mentioned a blue bottle," Dr. Wilson said quietly. "If we could locate it, Analyze the contents. It would be in her room, Abigail said. She keeps everything of importance locked away there. The sound of approaching footsteps silenced them. The door opened to reveal Eleanor, her face a careful mask of concern. "How touching," she said, surveying the scene. "But Jonathan needs rest, not excitement. The poor man barely knows where he is most days." She moved to the bedside opposite Abigail. "Darling, you should return to the parlor. The ladies are asking for you." "I'll stay with my father," Abigail replied firmly. Eleanor's lips tightened. "As you wish. But the doctors should examine him now. Perhaps you could give them space to work." It was a reasonable request, impossible to refuse without appearing obstructive. Abigail looked to Dr. Green, who nodded subtly. "Very well." She bent to kiss her father's forehead. "I'll be right outside, Father." In the hallway, Owen waited, his expression concerned. "How is he?" "Worse than I feared." Abigail struggled to maintain her composure. "She's killing him, Owen. Slowly, deliberately." He guided her gently away from the bedroom door to a small alcove where they couldn't be overheard. "Did he confirm it? The medicine?" "Yes. A dark liquid in a blue bottle. She mixes it with his evening drink." Abigail's hands clenched into fists. "It's in her room, but she keeps it locked." Owen's jaw tightened. "Then we need a distraction. Something to draw her away, long enough for someone to search." "But who?" "She knows I'm suspicious. She won't leave me unattended in the house." "Not you." Owen's gray eyes held hers steadily. "Me. You. But how would you trust me?" He squeezed her shoulder gently. "For now, go join the others in the parlor. Act as normally as possible." The parlor was tense, despite the social pretense maintained by the visitors. Mrs. Holcomb and two other ladies from the church sat rigidly on the sofa, teacups balanced on their knees. Muxu Porter stood by the fireplace, engaged in quiet conversation with a man Abigail recognized as Mr. Thornton, father of Emma, who had been sent away after her indiscretion. All eyes turned to Abigail as she entered. She forced a small smile, moving to take a seat near the window. "How is your dear father?" Mrs. Holcomb asked, her tone sympathetic, but her eyes alight with curiosity. "Very ill," Abigail replied simply, "but comforted by prayers and good company." "Such a trial for your stepmother," Mrs. Thornton commented, "nursing him day and night, and then to have you run off like that." Abigail bit back a sharp response. "There seems to be some confusion about my departure. I did not run off. I was put out during a blizzard." A shocked silence greeted this blunt statement. Mrs. Holcomb's cup rattled against its saucer. "Surely not," she said faintly. "Mrs. Fletcher has been beside herself with worry." "Has she?" Abigail's voice remained calm. "How strange, then, that she made no effort to find me when Mr. Sullivan informed Dr. Green of my whereabouts the very next day." The ladies exchanged uncomfortable glances. Muxu Porter cleared his throat. "Perhaps we might focus on Jonathan's recovery rather than past misunderstandings," he suggested diplomatically. "Miss Fletcher, would you join me in prayer for your father?" Grateful for the intervention, Abigail moved to stand beside the minister. As he began to lead a prayer, she noticed Owen slip quietly from the room. A moment later, Eleanor emerged from the sick room, her gaze sweeping the parlor as if taking inventory of those present. "Where is Mr. Sullivan?" she asked, interrupting the prayer. "He mentioned needing some air," Muxu Porter replied smoothly. "The sick room can be overwhelming for those unaccustomed to it." Eleanor's eyes narrowed suspiciously, but before she could respond, a tremendous crash came from the kitchen, followed by the sound of shattering glass. "What on earth?" She hurried toward the sound, the church ladies following in her wake, curiosity overcoming decorum. Abigail moved to follow, but Muksu Porter held her back with a gentle hand on her arm. "Wait," he murmured. In the kitchen they found Owen standing amid a sea of broken crockery, looking appropriately mortified. "My deepest apologies, Mrs. Fletcher," he said, gesturing to the mess. "I was looking for water and bumped into your shelving." Eleanor's face flushed with anger. "Those dishes were imported from Boston. I'll replace them, of course," Owen offered contritely. "It was inexcusably clumsy of me." As Eleanor surveyed the damage, Dr. Wilson appeared at the kitchen doorway, catching Abigail's eye with a subtle nod. Her heart leaped. He had found something. "Perhaps we should continue our visit another time," Muksu Porter suggested, reading the situation. "Jonathan needs rest, and Mrs. Fletcher clearly has a situation to address here." "Yes, that would be best," Eleanor agreed tightly, her social mask slipping to reveal the anger beneath. "Though, of course, Abigail is welcome to stay. This is her home, after all." The challenge in her stepmother's eyes was clear. "Stay alone with me, if you dare." "Actually," Dr. Green interjected, "I was hoping Miss Fletcher might assist me with organizing some patient records this afternoon. Her mother had quite a knowledge of medicinal herbs, and I'm cataloging local remedies." Eleanor couldn't object without appearing unreasonable. "How educational for her. Of course, if that's what she wishes." "Thank you, Dr. Green. I'd be happy to help," Abigail said, relief flooding through her. She turned to her stepmother, meeting her gaze directly. "I'll return tomorrow to see Father." "We'll look forward to it," Eleanor replied, her smile not reaching her eyes. As the visitors gathered their coats and prepared to depart, Owen managed to position himself near Abigail. "Dr. Wilson found the bottle," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "And something else, a letter, in her desk drawer, names, dates, amounts." Abigail's breath caught. "What kind of letter?" "He'll explain when we're safely away, but it's damning, Abigail. Very damning indeed." The ride to Dr. Green's house was tense with anticipation. Abigail sat between Owen and the minister in the wagon, her mind racing with questions she dared not ask until they were behind closed doors. Dr. Green's wife, a kind-faced woman with graying hair, met them at the door. "Samuel told me everything," she said, embracing Abigail warmly. "That poor man, and you, my dear, what you've endured." Inside, Dr. Wilson was already at work in Green's study, examining a small blue glass bottle. "Ah, Miss Fletcher," he said as they entered. "Perfect timing. I believe I've identified the substance your stepmother has been administering to your father." "Poison?" Abigail asked, her voice steady despite the churning in her stomach. "Yes, though a subtle one. Arsenic most likely mixed with laudanum to mask the symptoms and keep him docile." Dr. Wilson held the bottle to the light. "A particularly cruel method, slow, cumulative, difficult to detect without specific testing." "Can you prove it's from Eleanor? That she's been poisoning him deliberately?" "That's where this becomes interesting." He retrieved a folded paper from his coat pocket. "I found this in a locked drawer in her bedroom." Mr. Sullivan's distraction provided the perfect opportunity to search. Abigail took the letter with trembling fingers. It was addressed to E.M. at a post office box in Helena, dated 2 years earlier, before Eleanor had even met Jonathan Fletcher, E.M. "Your previous work was satisfactory, if somewhat delayed in execution. The inheritance was secured without suspicion as promised. For this new commission, time is of the essence. The subject must appear to die of natural causes, preferably before winter's end." The property in question is significant, 280 acres approx. Value $4,500 and legal documents must be in place prior to death. Standard terms apply 25% upon agreement, 75% upon completion. No payment for failure or detection. Respond using the usual method if these terms are acceptable. N.W. Abigail looked up, stunned. This is a contract for murder. Not just your father's, Dr. Wilson said grimly. The reference to previous work suggests this isn't her first victim. But who is A.N.W.? Moksu Porter asked, reading over Abigail's shoulder. I have a suspicion, Dr. Green said. Nathaniel Wright, a lawyer from Helena who handled the paperwork when Eleanor and Jonathan married. He's been back several times since most recently to update Jonathan's will. Disinheriting me, Abigail added quietly. Father mentioned signing papers, though he couldn't remember what they were. This is enough to involve the authorities, Owen said firmly. This letter, the poisoned Dr. Wilson's testimony. It won't be simple, the specialist cautioned. Eleanor Mason, or whatever her real name may be, is clearly experienced at this. She'll have prepared for suspicion, covered her tracks. What about Father? Abigail asked urgently. Can you help him? Dr. Wilson's expression softened. If we begin treatment immediately, there's a chance. Arsenic poisoning can be reversed if caught in time. But he's very weak, Miss Fletcher. I must be honest about his prospects. What do we do now? Moksu Porter placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. First, we ensure Jonathan receives proper medical care away from Eleanor's influence. Then we present our evidence to Sheriff Collins. And if the sheriff is skeptical, Owen asked, Eleanor has cultivated quite a reputation in Pine Hollow. Then we go above him, Dr. Green said firmly. To the circuit judge if necessary. But first we must get Jonathan out of that house. She'll never allow it, Abigail said, despair creeping into her voice. She controls everything, who sees him, who treats him. Then we don't give her a choice. Owen replied, his tone hardening. Dr. Green, could you certify that Jonathan requires specialized care unavailable in his home? Absolutely. His condition is critical, requiring constant medical supervision. And if Eleanor objects, then she reveals her true concern is not his health. Moksu Porter observed. A loving wife would want her husband to receive the best possible care regardless of location. We'll need the sheriff's cooperation to move him, Dr. Wilson pointed out, even with medical certification. Leave Sheriff Collins to me, the minister said. He's a reasonable man and a church elder. He'll listen. When? Abigail asked, urgency in her voice. Every day, every hour, she's with him. Tomorrow, Dr. Green decided. First thing in the morning, before Eleanor has time to prepare or resist. We'll bring an ambulance wagon and the sheriff. And tonight, Owen asked, is Jonathan safe until then? I'll insist on staying to monitor him overnight, Dr. Wilson offered. Medical necessity. She can hardly refuse with all the church ladies aware of his condition. Plans were made quickly after that. Dr. Green would draft the medical orders. Moksu Porter would speak with Sheriff Collins. Dr. Wilson would return to the Fletcher farm with the excuse of monitoring Jonathan's condition. And Abigail would stay with Mrs. Green safely away from Eleanor's reach. As evening approached, Owen prepared to return to his farm. I should get back to the children, he explained. They'll be worried. Abigail walked him to his wagon, grateful for a moment alone with him. Thank you, she said simply, for everything today. The distraction, the support, anyone would have done the same. No, she said firmly. Not anyone. Few would risk involving themselves in such a situation, especially for a virtual stranger. Owen's eyes softened as he looked down at her. You're hardly a stranger now, Abigail. The quiet statement, so simple yet so profound, warmed her despite the bitter cold. Will you tell the children what's happening? They deserve to know why I didn't return with you. Of course. Hannah was already preparing your bed when I left this morning. A smile touched his lips briefly. Lucy made you a drawing, said it was to help you be brave. Tears pricked Abigail's eyes. I've come to care for them very much, in such a short time. They feel the same. Owen hesitated, then added, We all do. Before she could respond, he climbed into the wagon and took up the reins. Tomorrow, then, when Jonathan is safe. Tomorrow, she echoed, watching, as he drove away, his figure growing smaller against the winter landscape. Inside, Mrs. Green had prepared a simple but hearty supper. As they ate, she shared what she knew of Eleanor Mason's arrival in Pine Hollow 3 years earlier. She appeared quite suddenly, claiming to be a widow from back east. Very refined, very proper. Jonathan was still deep in grief over Margaret's death, but Eleanor was persistent in her attentions. She targeted him, Abigail said bitterly. A wealthy widower with land and a vulnerable daughter. Looking back, it seems obvious, Mrs. Green agreed. But at the time, many thought it a blessing. A man alone with a young daughter, a respectable woman in need of a home, it seemed a sensible match. Did no one notice how she treated me, how father began to decline after the marriage? Mrs. Green's kind face clouded with regret. Some of us had concerns. The changes in your appearance, your increasing isolation. But Eleanor always had plausible explanations. Your difficult adjustment to having a new mother. Your fragile constitution inherited from Margaret. And people believed her over the evidence of their own eyes. Evil often wears a convincing mask, my dear. Mrs. Green patted her hand. But masks slip eventually. The truth finds its way to light. That night in the Greens' comfortable guest room, Abigail found sleep elusive. Her mind raced with worry for her father, with plans and contingencies, with fears of what Eleanor might do when cornered. But beneath these anxieties ran a current of hope, fragile, tentative, but real. For the first time in years, she wasn't fighting alone. Dawn broke clear and cold, the sky a pale, luminous blue that promised fair weather. Abigail dressed carefully in Caroline Sullivan's blue wool dress, drawing strength from the garment, as if it carried some essence of its former owner's courage. Dr. Green was already in his study when she came downstairs writing instructions for Jonathan's care. His wife prepared a hearty breakfast, insisting Abigail eat to fortify herself for the day ahead. You'll need your strength, she said firmly. Confrontations like this take a toll. Muksu Porter arrived as they finished eating, his expression grave but determined. Sheriff Collins will meet us at the Fletcher farm at 9 o'clock, he reported. He was skeptical at first, but agreed to witness the removal for medical reasons. And the evidence against Eleanor? Abigail asked anxiously. That's more complicated. He's reluctant to arrest a respectable woman on what he considers circumstantial evidence. The minister sighed heavily. The letter troubles him, but without proof that she authored it or that the initials definitively identify her. So she could still escape justice, Abigail said bitterly, even after everything she's done. Not necessarily, Dr. Green interjected. Dr. Wilson sent word early this morning. Jonathan had a lucid period during the night and made a statement implicating Eleanor in his poisoning. He signed it with Wilson and a neighbor as witnesses. Hope flared in Abigail's chest. Is he Is he better? Temporarily. Wilson administered a chelating agent that's helping to clear the arsenic from his system. But he's still very weak, Abigail. The damage done over months can't be reversed in a single night. But he has a chance now, she whispered. A real chance. Yes. Dr. Green's smile was cautious but genuine. A fighting chance. The Fletcher farm was quiet when they arrived, the morning sun casting long shadows across the snow-covered yard. Dr. Wilson met them at the door, his expression grave. She knows something's wrong, he murmured as they entered. Been watching me like a hawk all night. Tried to insist on administering his medicine herself, but I prevented it. Where is she now? Moksu Porter asked. Kitchen. Preparing breakfast, she said, though I haven't seen her bring any food out. Sheriff Collins arrived moments later, a tall, weathered man with a gray mustache and shrewd eyes. He nodded to Dr. Green and the minister, his gaze lingering on Abigail. Miss Fletcher, he said, tipping his hat. Heard you'd returned. Your stepmother's been quite concerned about your absence. I'm sure she appeared so, Abigail replied evenly. Appearances are her specialty. The sheriff frowned slightly but said nothing, turning instead to Dr. Wilson. You're the specialist from Helena, the one claiming Jonathan Fletcher's being poisoned, not claiming sheriff, confirming. Dr. Wilson retrieved a small vial from his pocket. This is a sample of the medicine Mrs. Fletcher has been administering to her husband. It contains significant amounts of arsenic, along with laudanum, to mask the symptoms. Collins took the vial, studying it skeptically. And you're certain of this? I've conducted preliminary tests. More thorough analysis can be done in Helena, but the presence of arsenic is unmistakable. And you believe Mrs. Fletcher administered this deliberately, a woman with no history of criminal behavior, a respected member of the community. Sheriff, Abigail interrupted her patients, wearing thin. My father made a statement last night, witnessed and signed, identifying Eleanor as his poisoner. Is that not evidence enough to at least question her? Collins shifted uncomfortably. Statements from the delirious. He wasn't delirious, Dr. Wilson said firmly. He was lucid, coherent, and fully aware of the significance of his words. Well, The discussion was interrupted by Eleanor's appearance in the doorway, her face a perfect mask of concerned confusion. Sheriff Collins' doctors. What's happening? Her gaze settled on Abigail, hardening briefly before the mask slipped back into place. Is something wrong with Jonathan? He seemed better this morning. Mrs. Fletcher. Dr. Green stepped forward. Your husband requires specialized care that cannot be provided at home. We've come to transport him to my infirmary in town. Eleanor's expression shifted. Surprise, calculation, then practiced concern. But surely he's too weak to be moved. The shock alone could. The greater risk is leaving him here, Dr. Wilson interrupted. His condition requires constant medical supervision and treatments unavailable in a home setting. I've been nursing him devotedly, Eleanor protested, a note of indignation entering her voice. Day and night, sacrificing my own rest. Yes, we're all aware of your dedication, Moksu Porter said dryly. Nevertheless, medical necessity takes precedence over personal preference. Eleanor's gaze darted between them, sensing the shift in power, the unspoken accusations. She turned to the sheriff. Robert, surely you're not supporting this, removing a man from his own home against his wife's wishes? If the doctors say it's necessary, Collins began awkwardly, it's not necessary. It's interference, pure and simple. Her voice rose, the careful composure beginning to crack. Abigail has poisoned you all against me with her lies. The ungrateful child, has always resented me, always tried to come between Jonathan and me. The only poisoning here, Abigail said quietly, is what you've done to my father. 3 years of cruelty to me, and now attempted murder of your husband. Eleanor's face contorted with rage, the beautiful mask slipping completely. You little viper, after everything I've done for you, you've done nothing but harm. Abigail countered, her voice steady, despite her racing heart. And now everyone knows it. Knows what? Eleanor laughed, a brittle, harsh sound. You have no proof, no evidence, only the ramblings of a sick old man and the spite of a jealous child. Actually, Dr. Wilson said, producing the blue bottle, we have this and this. He held up the letter signed with the initials N.W. and a signed statement from Jonathan identifying you as his poisoner. Eleanor's face drained of color. For a moment she stood frozen, trapped. Then, with a movement so sudden it caught them all by surprise, she lunged for the kitchen doorway, snatching something from the counter. A knife, its blade glinting in the morning light. "Stay back!" she hissed, backing toward the rear door. "All of you!" Sheriff Collins drew his weapon. Mrs. Fletcher put down the knife. "Don't make this worse for yourself." "Worse!" Eleanor laughed again, the sound unhinged. "It can't get worse. You think this is the first time I've been cornered? The first time I've had to adapt?" "Eleanor," Muksu Porter said calmly, "there's nowhere to go. The property is surrounded. Put down the knife, and we can discuss this reasonably." "Reasonable men are so easily manipulated," she spat. "That's how I've survived this long, finding reasonable men who see what they want to see." Her gaze fixed on Abigail. "You should have frozen to death in that storm, you troublesome little witch. Just like your mother should have died years earlier than she did." Abigail went cold. "What do you mean?" A cruel smile twisted Eleanor's beautiful features. "Who do you think introduced the first consumption patients to Pine Hollow? A few visits to the sick in Helena, a few contaminated handkerchiefs left in strategic locations." She shrugged elegantly. Margaret Fletcher was an unexpected obstacle, so dedicated to healing others that she exposed herself repeatedly to the disease. So convenient when she finally succumbed. Horror washed over Abigail. You caused the outbreak that killed my mother, that killed Owen Sullivan's wife, and so many others." "Not directly, just helped it along. Margaret was investigating me, you see. Too clever for her own good. She was beginning to connect certain deaths to my visits." Eleanor's grip on the knife tightened. "Like mother, like daughter, it seems." Before anyone could react, Eleanor lunged, not toward the door as expected, but directly at Abigail, the knife raised to strike. Time seemed to slow. Abigail saw the blade descending, saw the hatred in Eleanor's eyes, saw her own death reflected in that cold gaze. She tried to move to dodge, but her body felt leaden, unresponsive. Then a blur of movement. Owen Sullivan arriving unnoticed during the confrontation, throwing himself between Abigail and the knife. The blade caught him in the shoulder, drawing a grunt of pain as he wrestled Eleanor to the ground. Sheriff Collins and Dr. Green rushed forward, helping to subdue the struggling woman. The knife clattered to the floor as Eleanor screamed invectives, her composure completely shattered. "Owen!" Abigail knelt beside him, hands hovering over the growing blood stain on his coat. "You're hurt." "Not badly." He grimaced, though his face had paled. "Caught the shoulder, not the chest, as she intended." Dr. Wilson hurried over, examining the wound with professional efficiency. "Deep but clean. Missed the major vessels. You were fortunate, Mr. Sullivan." "Fortunate to arrive when I did. Owen replied, his eyes finding Abigail's. I couldn't stay away knowing the confrontation was coming. Left the children with neighbors and rode hard. Eleanor, now securely restrained, laughed bitterly. How touching. The widower and the orphan. You deserve each other. Damaged goods, both of you. Take her away, Sheriff, Muxu Porter said firmly, before she does more harm. As Collins and his hastily deputized assistant led Eleanor out, Dr. Green approached Abigail. Your father's awake, asking for you. The sick room was brighter now, curtains drawn back to admit the winter sunlight. Jonathan Fletcher sat propped against pillows, still terribly gaunt, but with a clarity in his eyes that had been absent the day before. Abby, he whispered as she entered, his thin face lighting with recognition. You came back. Of course I did. She took his hand, tears spilling freely now. I never left willingly, Father. Never. I know that now. His voice was weak but steady. The doctors explained what she did, what she's been doing all along. Shame clouded his features. I should have protected you. Should have seen. No, Father, she fooled everyone. Abigail squeezed his hand gently. She was very skilled at deception. Not everyone, he corrected. Your mother suspected. Before she died, she warned me, but I was blind. So blind. A tear slipped down his hollow cheek. Can you forgive me, Abby? There's nothing to forgive. She bent to kiss his forehead. Now you must focus on getting well. Dr. Green says you have a good chance of recovery with proper treatment. Jonathan nodded weakly. They're taking me to town. To the infirmary. Yes, where you'll receive the best care possible. She tried to smile reassuringly. And I'll visit every day. You'll stay with the Greens. Abigail hesitated. For now, until you're stronger, and we decide what comes next. His eyes, though tired, held a glimmer of his old shrewdness. The Sullivan fellow. He cares for you. Heat rushed to her cheeks. He's been very kind. He saved my life, actually, twice now. Jonathan's lips curved in a faint smile. Your mother would approve, I think. Before Abigail could respond, Dr. Wilson entered. The ambulance wagon is ready, Mr. Fletcher. It's time to move you to town. The transfer went more smoothly than expected. Jonathan, though weak, remained alert throughout the journey. By mid-morning, he was settled in Dr. Green's infirmary, a small building behind the doctor's house with 4 patient beds, only 1 currently occupied. As the immediate crisis passed, exhaustion began to claim Abigail. The emotional strain of the confrontation, coupled with nights of poor sleep, left her drained. Mrs. Green, ever observant, insisted she rest. Your father is stable, my dear. Dr. Wilson will remain with him today, and Samuel will take over tonight. There's nothing more you can do at present. But Owen, his injury, is being tended to as we speak. Go rest. There will be time for everything else later. Too weary to argue, Abigail allowed herself to be led to the guest room. She removed Caroline's blue dress, carefully hanging it with reverence before slipping into a borrowed nightgown. As she lay down, the events of the morning replayed in her mind. Eleanor's confession about the consumption outbreak, the knife Owen's intervention. He could have died. The thought sent a shudder through her. Died protecting her from Eleanor's wrath, just as her mother had died indirectly investigating Eleanor's earlier crimes. How many lives had that woman destroyed? How many families torn apart by her calculated evil? And all for what? Money, property. These troubled thoughts followed Abigail into an uneasy sleep, where she dreamed of blue bottles and knives, and her mother's voice calling from far away. When she woke, the quality of light suggested late afternoon. Someone had entered while she slept, leaving a tray with tea and bread on the bedside table. She ate gratefully, her body reminding her that she'd had nothing since breakfast. Dressed again in Caroline's blue wool, she made her way downstairs to find Mrs. Green in the kitchen preparing dinner. "There you are," the older woman said warmly. "Feeling better?" "Much, thank you. How is my father?" "Resting comfortably. The treatments seem to be helping already. His color is better, and he's taken some broth." "And Owen? His wound?" Mrs. Green's eyes twinkled knowingly. "Mr. Sullivan was patched up and sent home to reassure his children. He said to tell you he'll return tomorrow." She paused, then added casually, "He sat by your door for quite some time, you know. Wanted to be sure you were resting peacefully." Abigail felt a blush creep up her neck. "He's been very protective." "Indeed." Mrs. Green turned back to her cooking, but not before Abigail caught her smile. "You might be interested to know that Sheriff Collins has formally arrested Eleanor Mason, or Evelyn Murdoch, as it appears her real name might be. The circuit judge has been telegraphed and will arrive next week to handle the case." "Evelyn Murdoch," Abigail repeated. Even her name was a lie. According to what the sheriff learned this afternoon, she's suspected in at least 3 similar cases across Montana and Wyoming. Wealthy widowers who died under mysterious circumstances after brief marriages. Each time she disappeared with their assets before questions could be raised. But this time, she made a mistake. Several, it seems. Underestimating you primarily. Mrs. Green patted her hand affectionately. "You have your mother's strength, my dear. Margaret would be proud." After dinner, Abigail visited her father briefly. He was sleeping peacefully, his breathing more regular than it had been in months. Dr. Wilson assured her that the treatments were working. The poison was being eliminated from his system gradually. "He'll need time to recover fully," the specialist cautioned. "Weeks, perhaps months. And there may be lasting effects, weakness, nerve damage. But he should live, Miss Fletcher, and in time regain much of his strength." "Thank you," she said fervently, "for everything you've done." "I merely provided the medical knowledge. You provided the courage that made it possible." He smiled kindly. "Your mother's legacy lives on in you." That night, Abigail slept deeply for the first time in years. The knowledge that Eleanor, Evelyn, was securely locked in the town jail, that her father was receiving proper care, that the nightmare was finally ending, allowed her to truly rest. Morning brought blue skies and a sense of possibility. After breakfast, Abigail sat with her father reading to him from one of Dr. Green's books, a collection of poetry that had been her mother's favorite. Jonathan drifted in and out of sleep, but smiled each time he woke to find her still there. Mid-morning, Mrs. Green appeared at the infirmary door. "You have visitors, my dear." Abigail looked up, expecting perhaps Muksu Porter or Sheriff Collins with more questions. Instead, she found Hannah Lucy and Ethan Sullivan bundled in winter coats, their faces bright with excitement. "Abigail!" Lucy broke free from Hannah's restraining hand and rushed forward, throwing herself into Abigail's arms. "We came to town. Papa said we could visit if we promised to be very good and not too loud, because your papa is sick." "Lucy," Hannah scolded, though her own smile was radiant, "you're being loud right now." "Oh." The little girl immediately lowered her voice to a comical stage whisper. "Sorry." Abigail laughed, joy bubbling up unexpectedly. "It's all right. My father is sleeping now, but he's getting better." Ethan hung back slightly, his expression a mixture of relief and uncertainty. "Papa said the bad lady tried to hurt you, that she hurt him instead." "Your father saved my life," Abigail said seriously. "He was very brave." Pride straightened the boy's shoulders. He said it wasn't a bad wound, that he'd had worse from farm accidents. Well, it looked quite serious to me. Abigail included all three children in her gaze. I can never thank him enough for what he did, for what all of you have done for me. Hannah stepped forward, her young face solemn. Are you coming back to our house, I mean, when your father is better? The question, so direct, so loaded with hope and fear, caught Abigail off guard. Before she could formulate a response, Owen appeared in the doorway, his left arm in a sling, but his color good. That's a conversation for another time, he said gently. For now, let's be grateful everyone is safe. Papa, Lucy ran to him, careful to embrace only his uninjured side. We've been very good, just like we promised. I can see that. He ruffled her hair affectionately, his eyes finding Abigail's over the children's heads. How is Jonathan today? Improving, she replied, warmth spreading through her at the simple sight of him, alive and whole, despite his injury. Wilson says the treatments are working. Good, that's good. His smile, rare and genuine, transformed his stern features. The children insisted on coming to town with me. I hope we're not intruding. Not at all. It's wonderful to see all of you. She included the children in her smile, but her eyes returned to Owen, drawn as if by some invisible force. Thank you. For yesterday. For everything. He shook his head slightly. No thanks needed. Mrs. Green, who had been observing this exchange with undisguised interest, cleared her throat. Children, would you like to help me prepare some lemonade? I have fresh lemons from the mercantile, quite a treat in winter. As she shepherded them from the room, Owen moved to stand beside Abigail, both of them watching Jonathan's peaceful sleep. Sheriff Collins came by the farm this morning, he said quietly. Eleanor, or Evelyn, has confessed to multiple poisonings, including your father's. She's also implicated Nathaniel Wright in at least 2 previous deaths. They've both been charged with attempted murder. And the consumption outbreak. Her confession about my mother. Owen's expression darkened. She's denied it since being taken into custody. Claims she was merely trying to upset you to distract everyone while she escaped. But you believe it's true. It wasn't a question. I do. It fits with what we know of her. Calculating, methodical, willing to sacrifice innocent lives for her own gain. His hand found hers warm and solid. I'm sorry, Abigail. About your mother. About all of it. At least now we know. And she can't hurt anyone else. She turned to face him fully. Your wound. It's truly not serious. Painful, but clean. Dr. Green says I'll have full use of the arm again in a few weeks. His gray eyes held hers steadily. A small price to pay. Not to me, her voice caught. I couldn't bear it if you'd been seriously hurt because of me. Not because of you, because of her. His hand tightened around hers. And I would do it again, without hesitation. The simple statement spoken with such quiet certainty stirred something deep within Abigail, a feeling she had almost forgotten existed. Security, belonging, perhaps even... A small sound from the bed interrupted her thoughts. Jonathan was awake, watching them with tired but lucid eyes. Father, she said, moving to his side, but not releasing Owen's hand. How are you feeling? Better. His gaze moved to their joined hands, then to Owen's face. Mr. Sullivan, I understand I owe you my daughter's life. Sir, Owen nodded respectfully. She saved herself, in truth. I merely provided shelter from a storm. A ghost of a smile touched Jonathan's lips. Modest, good quality in a man. He shifted slightly, wincing with the effort. Abigail tells me you have children. Yes, sir. 3. They're here in town today, in fact. I'd like to meet them. When I'm stronger. Jonathan's eyes, though tired, held a hint of his former shrewdness. And discuss future arrangements. Abigail felt heat rise to her cheeks. Father, please. Mr. Sullivan has already done so much. And would do more, I think. Jonathan's gaze moved between them. If given the opportunity. Owen's voice, when he replied, was steady, but tinged with something Abigail couldn't quite identify. Any man would be fortunate to be given such an opportunity, Mr. Fletcher. The moment hung between them, weighted with unspoken possibilities. Then Lucy's voice floated down the hallway, breaking the spell. Can we bring the lemonade in? Now I didn't spill any. I promise. Life, it seemed, would continue to move forward. Sweet, sour, complex, and utterly unpredictable. The days that followed established a new rhythm. Abigail divided her time between the infirmary, where her father grew gradually stronger, and the Greens' home, where she helped with household tasks in return for their generous hospitality. Owen and the children visited regularly, bringing news from their farm and small gifts. Lucy's drawings, Hannah's attempt at knitting a wooden bird Ethan had carved. 1 week after Eleanor's arrest, Jonathan was strong enough to sit up for extended periods and take solid food. Dr. Wilson, satisfied with his progress, prepared to return to Helena. The worst is behind him, he assured Abigail, though complete recovery will take time. Dr. Green can oversee his continued treatment, and I've left detailed instructions. How can I ever thank you? By living well, Miss Fletcher. It's the best revenge against those who sought to destroy you. He clasped her hand warmly, and perhaps by considering the cultivation of your mother's healing knowledge. The world needs more practitioners who understand both traditional remedies and modern medicine. The suggestion planted a seed in Abigail's mind, a possible future she hadn't considered before. Her mother's knowledge, preserved in memory and practice, combined with formal medical training. A way to honor Margaret Fletcher's legacy while forging her own path. As Dr. Wilson departed, Sheriff Collins arrived with news. The circuit judge had reviewed the evidence and determined that a formal trial was unnecessary given the confessions. Eleanor, now confirmed as Evelyn Murdoch, and Nathaniel Wright would be transferred to the territorial prison in Deer Lodge to serve sentences for attempted murder and conspiracy. What about her other victims? Abigail asked. The previous husbands she poisoned. Investigations are ongoing, Collins replied. But it seems likely she'll face additional charges. She won't see freedom again, Miss Fletcher. Neither will Wright. It was justice of a sort. Though nothing could restore the years of suffering, the lives lost, at least the architects of that suffering would pay for their crimes. That evening, as Abigail sat with her father, he broached a subject that had been hovering unspoken between them. The farm, he said, his voice stronger than it had been in months. It needs attention. Spring planting isn't far off. Don't worry about that now, Father. Focus on getting well. We must be practical, Abby. He shifted against his pillows, determined despite his weakness. I won't be able to manage it this year. Perhaps never again with my health as it is. We'll hire help, or lease portions to neighbors, or consider another arrangement entirely. His eyes, so like her own, held hers steadily. Owen Sullivan is a good man, capable, honorable. Heat flooded her cheeks. Father, please, this isn't the time. When is the time? Then, when I'm gone. He reached for her hand. I've squandered too many opportunities, Abby. Made too many poor choices. I won't waste what time I have left being silent about what matters." "And what matters?" she asked softly. "Your happiness, your future." He squeezed her fingers gently. "I see how you look at him, how he looks at you. There's something there worth exploring at the very least. It's complicated. Life usually is." A smile touched his lips. "But sometimes amid all the complexity, we're offered simple truths. Don't ignore them out of fear or misplaced duty to me." Before she could respond, a knock at the infirmary door announced Owen himself, standing somewhat awkwardly with a small package in his hand. "Evening," he said, nodding to them both. "Hope I'm not interrupting." "Not at all," Jonathan replied, his eyes twinkling with what Abigail recognized as mischief. "In fact, your timing is perfect. I was just telling Abigail that I'd like to discuss the farm with you, perhaps tomorrow, when I'm feeling stronger." "Of course, sir. Whatever you wish." "Good, good." Jonathan yawned dramatically. "And now I believe I'll rest. Abigail, perhaps you could show Mr. Sullivan out. No need to hurry back on my account." His transparent matchmaking should have been embarrassing, but Abigail found herself suppressing a smile as she led Owen out to the Greens' front porch. The evening was cold, but clear stars emerging in the darkening sky. "Your father seems much improved," Owen observed. "Yes, Dr. Wilson says it's remarkable, given how close he came to—" She couldn't finish the sentence. "He's a strong man, like his daughter." Abigail looked up at him, studying his face in the fading light. The sling was gone now, his arm healing well according to Dr. Green. In the weeks since she had stumbled into his life, she had come to know this man. His steadiness, his quiet strength, his deep love for his children. Yet there remained so much unspoken between them. "Owen," she began, uncertain how to proceed. "About what my father said. You don't need to explain. He's concerned for your future, for the farm. It's natural." "It's not just that." She gathered her courage. "He sees something between us, something I think we both feel but haven't acknowledged." Owen was silent for a long moment, his gray eyes searching hers. "And what do you think that is, Abigail?" "I think that when I was at my lowest point, you showed me kindness without expectation, that you opened your home and your heart to a stranger, that your children have become precious to me in ways I never anticipated." She took a deep breath. "And that the thought of returning to a life that doesn't include all of you is unbearable." The confession hung in the cold air between them. Owen's expression remained unreadable for a heartbeat, then another. Finally, he reached into his pocket and withdrew a small object, a wooden spoon intricately carved with a pattern of herbs around the handle. "I made this," he said quietly, "for you. Started it the night you arrived, though I didn't know then who it was for or why I felt compelled to carve these particular patterns." Abigail accepted the spoon, running her fingers over the delicate lavender and rosemary etched into the wood. "It's beautiful. In my family, there's a tradition. When a man recognizes someone as significant to his future, he creates something with his hands. Something useful, but also beautiful. A declaration of intent, I suppose you could call it." Her heart quickened. "And what is your intent, Owen Sullivan?" His eyes, steady and certain, held hers. "To offer you a choice, Abigail Fletcher. Not out of obligation or circumstance, but out of genuine feeling. The children need a mother, yes. The farm needs attention, true. But those are secondary to the simple fact that I have come to care for you deeply. More deeply than I believed possible after Caroline. Even though we've known each other such a short time, some things don't require years to recognize. Some connections form quickly, but root deeply. He took her hand, his touch warm despite the cold night. I'm not asking for an immediate answer. Your father needs you now. You need time to heal, to consider your future without pressure. But when you're ready, if you're ever ready, know that there is a place for you with us, always. Tears pricked Abigail's eyes, not of sadness, but of a joy so unexpected, so complete, it felt almost like pain. I don't need time to know how I feel, Owen. These weeks with you and the children, they've shown me what family can be, should be. What love looks like in daily actions, not just words. Then perhaps when your father is stronger, we might discuss those future arrangements he mentioned. A smile rare and beautiful transformed Owen's stern features. Until then, know that we wait for you. That home remains wherever you are. Under the vast Montana sky, with stars emerging like promises above them, Abigail felt her mother's words echo in her heart. Find the light when darkness surrounds you. It is always there, even when we cannot see it. She had found it at last, not a single beam, but a constellation of lights. Her father's recovery, justice for Eleanor's crimes, the children's acceptance, and most brightly, of all, the steady glow of Owen Sullivan's unwavering heart. Spring would come, bringing new growth to fields long fallow. Summer would follow with its abundant harvest. And Abigail Fletcher, who had once stood at the edge of a frozen river contemplating surrender, would instead embrace life in all its complex, beautiful fullness, planting seeds, tending gardens, healing wounds, and loving deeply, truly, completely. The darkness had not won. The light had found its way through,